Get comfortable. Find a position where your body can lie still and just listen. On your back, on your side, it does not matter. As long as your shoulders sink down, your jaw loosens and your breathing slows and evens out. The room around you can do whatever it wants. For now, it is background. There are no phones here, no blue screens, no last scroll before sleep. There is stone, dust, bronze, leather, and people whose work is war. This is Sparta. You are a little over 20. In the modern world, that would be warm-up age, the time to choose who you want to be. Here, that choice was made for you long ago, on the day a shield was put into your hands and nobody asked your opinion. Morning reaches you as sound before light. Short, hard voices in the street outside. A name called, a single word answered back. Heavy footsteps on stone. A shield bumping a thigh with a dull thud. Somewhere an instructor is already shouting at someone who moved a heartbeat too slow. You open your eyes. The room is small and bare. Stone walls, no shelves, no decorations. One wooden chest, one hard bed. A narrow slit of a window where a line of pale morning light cuts across the floor and climbs the opposite wall. The air smells of oil on leather and wood, of old sweat in cloth, of dust and warm stone. Nothing here is meant to be pretty or soft. It is simply real. You sit up and your body reports in. Shoulders ache with a familiar heaviness. Your back remembers the pull of a shield strap. Your knees remember running in armor over rough ground. Your hands remember the shock of wooden practice blades. Pain here is not an emergency. It is just part of how being alive feels. You're not alone. Other men are waking in the same room. To one side, someone tightens the straps of his cuirass. To the other, someone pulls a red cloak over his shoulders. One man sits on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, breathing slowly for a few seconds before he stands. A short joke crosses the room, earns a low reply, and then quiet returns. The kind of quiet where everyone knows exactly what comes next. Your tunic lies where you left it. The cloth is rough, but your skin gave up complaining years ago. You pull it on and knot the belt in a single practiced motion. Then your hand reaches for what matters more than anything else in this life. Shield, spear, helmet. The shield leans against the wall, round, heavy, wood inside, bronze outside. The rim is a map of past impacts, scratches, shallow dents, one flattened mark from a training spear that hit too hard. It is not an emblem or a costume piece. It is the piece of the world you will try to hide behind when everything in front of you wants you gone. Next to it stands the spear. The ash shaft is smooth where your hands have worn it down. The bronze point catches a thin line of light from the window. It does not glitter. It does not need to. It is just ready. On a low stand rests your helmet. When you pick it up, the metal is cool and solid in your hands. Inside, the leather smells of oil and old sweat. You know how it feels to lower it over your head, to have the world narrow to a slit, to hear your own breath louder than the noise outside. You know you will do that again soon. For a moment you stay still and let your eyes travel once around the room. The scratch by the door where the shield edge bit into the stone. The dark stain on the wall that nobody bothered to scrub away. The empty corner where a bench used to stand before it was needed somewhere else. Not much, but for years this has been yours. You step into the corridor. The floor is worn by sandals like yours. Light from outside draws pale bands on the stone. The air is a little cooler here, touched by morning. At the entrance they are waiting. Your father, your mother. They do not hurry to you. They do not cling to you. No one throws themselves at a man who is walking out to stand with 300 others. In this city, feelings are kept behind the ribs where they cannot interfere. Your father looks older than in the last clear image you have of him from childhood. The lines at his eyes are deeper, his beard more grey than black. Once he also carried shield and spear. Now his battle is to stand upright, watch you go, and not look away. He studies you as if you were a fellow soldier, not a boy. Your mother's hands are folded in front of her, fingers laced a little too tight to be relaxed. Her face is controlled, but her eyes are not empty. There is weight behind them, and she holds it there, because that is what this place taught her to do. Your father speaks first. 2 words. Walk straight. In them is everything he wants from you. Do not stumble. Do not fail the man next to you. Do not shame the doorway you are leaving. Your mother's voice is softer, but firm. Come back, if the gods allow. No promises, no easy comfort. Just a thin strip of possibility laid between you and whatever is coming. You answer with 3 words that are enough here. I will stand. Nothing more needs to be said. You will go where you are sent. You will stand where you are told to stand. You will do that until you cannot stand any longer. That is as much truth as anyone can give. For a few breaths you simply look at them, the way the light catches your father's cheek, the one loose strand of your mother's hair that has slipped out of place, the smell of the house of smoke and oil and stone. You store these details somewhere deep where no iron can reach. Then you step past them and out into the street. Sparta in early morning is stone and shadow. Houses press close along narrow lanes. There are no bright awnings, no painted signs. The city looks as stripped down as your room, built from what is necessary and nothing else. Men are already moving, drifting in the same direction until they become a column, shields on arms, spears in hands, red cloaks falling down their backs. The sound is a low, steady blend of leather creaking, bronze knocking, feet meeting stone. At the assembly point you see what you belong to, 300. They are not copies of one another. One man is tall and broad, another is shorter, with one shoulder a little lower from an old wound. A scar pulls at the corner of one mouth. Someone grins around a missing tooth. On one shield a fresh dent shines brighter than the rest. Different faces, pressed into the same purpose. You slide into your place in the line. The curve of your shield meets the edge of the shield beside it. Your shoulder fits between the men on either side. Their presence is solid and familiar. You know their movements, their voices, the way they sounded on long training days when everyone was too tired to pretend they were not afraid. Voices fade as a single figure steps to the front. Leonidas. He does not look like a statue from a temple wall. He looks like a man who has marched and fought enough times to understand exactly what he is asking from you. His face is marked by sun and wind. His eyes are calm. His armour is plain and functional, not polished for show. He lets his gaze run along the length of the line. When he speaks, his voice is clear without being loud. An army is coming from the east, larger than any one city can face. There is a narrow pass by the sea where that mass can be forced into a space small enough for a few hundred shields to matter. Your task is not to win the war. Your task is to hold that pass for as long as you can, so that others have time to gather and fight later. We will go where we are meant to stand, he says. We will stand there as long as we can. That is enough. Fear does not disappear, but it moves out of the centre of your chest. Ahead there is a road. At the end of that road, between rock and water, there is a place where your feet will stop. Between here and there is only one thing to do. Walk. The command is given. The line begins to move. Your shield taps your thigh in a slow rhythm. Your spear rests easily in your hand. Dust rises under 300 pairs of sandals. Behind you, Sparta starts to shrink into stone and memory. Ahead, the road stretches out, and the even beat of marching feet becomes a low, steady sound you could almost fall asleep to. You walk. Stone under sandals, shield on your arm, spear in your hand. The line moves forward with that slow, steady rhythm that makes thoughts loosen and drift. When the body knows exactly what to do, the mind slips backward. Back to when you were smaller, lighter, and already not really a child. You were 7 when Sparta stopped pretending you belonged to your parents. One morning you went to sleep in your family's house, with the smell of your mother's cooking and your father's voice somewhere nearby. Not long after that you woke up in a different world. They called it the agoge, a word that sounds simple until you have to live inside it. The first thing you remember clearly is the cold. Not the chill of one bad day, but a steady, absolutely reliable presence. Your cloak was thin, the floor was hard, nights were longer than they needed to be, and blankets were shorter. If you wanted warmth, you had to earn it with your own body. There were other boys, many of them. None of you were special. Names did not matter much at first. What mattered was how fast you ran, how long you could stand, how hard you hit, and how quietly you took a fall. You learned quickly that in this place nobody rushed to help you up. If you slipped in the dust during a drill and landed on your hands and knees, the sharp sting in your palms was yours to manage. The instructor's voice did not soften. His eyes did not ask if you were hurt. The only question was whether you would get back in line before he needed to shout. Food was not generous. It was not starvation, but it was never quite enough to feel full. A bowl passed along the line. Bread, rough and dark, a little cheese, sometimes olives, sometimes nothing extra at all. You ate what was there, and when the bowl was empty, that was the end of the conversation. They told you that if you wanted more, you could take it, not from the stores, from life. Steal if you must, they said. But if you are caught, then the punishment is not for stealing. It is for being clumsy and stupid. So you learn to move quietly, to notice who watched the storeroom, who slept too deeply, who never looked up when someone walked past. You learned the difference between risk that made you sharper and risk that would break you. At first, fear was thin and sharp. Fear of being hit, of being shouted at, of being picked out and put in front of everyone as an example of what not to be. Slowly that fear thickened, flattened, turned into something else. It became a background pressure that pushed you to pay attention. There were fights, of course, not friendly wrestling in the dust. Real fights, with real anger behind them, elbows, fists, teeth. Sometimes a stone in the hand if no one was looking. You learned how much pain a body could take and still keep moving. You learned that someone who looks bigger is not always harder to bring down. You remember one boy. He was louder than the rest, always first to laugh when someone else was hit. One day he picked the wrong target. A smaller boy, thinner, quieter. It looked easy. It should have been easy, but the quiet one did not stay on the ground. He came back over and over like a wave, low and determined. They both ended up bruised, bleeding from the nose, breath ragged. The instructors watched without stepping in. When it was over, nobody cared who started it. What mattered was who kept getting up. You watched and understood. In this world, endurance was louder than words. You trained with wood before you touched bronze, spears that seemed too long for your arms, shields that dragged at your shoulder. At first you were clumsy, always a half-second late. The shield edge bit into your own foot more than once. The spear slipped in your grip and skidded away in drills. They did not slow down to let you adjust. You adjusted or you got hit. You remember the day your arm finally stopped shaking under the weight of the shield. You were still small, still thin, but something had settled inside. The round disc no longer felt like a foreign object. It felt like an awkward, heavy extra limb that might one day become natural. There were lessons that had nothing to do with weapons and everything to do with control. You learned to speak little and listen more, to walk without dragging your feet, to keep your face steady when someone tried to provoke a reaction. Laughter was allowed, but not the kind that spilled out of you uncontrollably. Everything had to be held in a firm grip, even joy. Sometimes, at night, when the others were already drifting towards sleep, you would lie on your back, look at the dark beams above you, and think about your parents' house, about the taste of food when no one was watching the portions, about your mother's hands on your shoulders for a moment longer than necessary. You did not cry, or if you did, you learned to do it silently, with your face turned into your thin blanket, breathing carefully until your chest stopped shaking. The boy who cried loudly made the night worse for everyone. Days slid into one another until you stopped counting them. Seasons changed the colour of the hills and the feel of the wind. Training changed your body. Bones grew, muscles thickened, skin hardened. Pain did not leave. It simply became something you could carry without dropping everything else. You ran until your lungs burned and your legs felt like they were full of sand. You stood in the sun until sweat ran into your eyes and you could barely keep them open. You repeated the same movements until they were no longer something you decided to do. They simply happened when they needed to. At some point, without any single clear moment, you realized that you no longer thought of leaving. There was nowhere to leave to. The boy who arrived here with a family house behind him had been pushed, struck, drilled, and shaped into someone who belonged more to the line than to any single room in Sparta. A shout in the present brings you back. The road is still under your feet. The shield is still on your arm. You blink once, draw a slower breath, and let the memory of the agog sink back down again. It did what it was built to do. It turned you into someone who can walk toward Thermopylae with 300 others and not turn around. The road keeps unrolling under your feet. Dust rises, settles on your legs, on your cloak, on the edge of your shield. The march is steady, almost hypnotic. Step, step, step. It is easy to let rhythm pull you backward again, into the time when you first learned what it really meant to stand in a line. At some point, the boys of the Agog stopped being just a crowd of small, angry shapes. They began to stretch. Voices grew deeper, arms and legs lengthened. Wooden weapons that once felt impossible to lift started to feel light. The instructors did not say that you were becoming men. They simply started hitting harder. The shield changed first. One day, they brought out heavier ones, not the thin training circles, but real weight. Wood, thick and solid. Bronze face, rough to the touch, with that particular smell of metal warmed by many hands. Lift. The command was simple. The reality was not. Your arm burned before you even set the shield right. The strap cut into your forearm. The edge knocked your shin when you tried to move. It blocked your own vision as much as it promised to block anything coming toward you. You were told to hold the shield not for yourself, but for the man on your left. Your left side was someone else's responsibility. Your right side was yours. It sounded like words at first. Then they put you into a line and made the words real. You remember the first time the formation closed, shield to shield. The instructor walked along the front, pushing at each shield with his hand, then with his foot, then with the full weight of his body. If you let the shield tilt, if it slipped or wobbled, the impact went straight into your ribs. Again. You did it again, and again. The spear was next. The long ash shaft felt alive when the line moved together. One man alone could make it swing and stab and twist. But in a row, shoulder to shoulder, each spear became one tooth in a larger jaw. If one tooth moved out of rhythm, the whole bite went wrong. You learned distances the hard way. Too close, and you tangled in the man ahead of you. Too far, and your point found only empty air. Drills blurred into one another. Slowly stepping forward, shields together, spear points levelled. Then back, never turning your body, never exposing your side. Left, right, close, open. The instructor's voice cut through the air, counting time, correcting, mocking, praising, in rare, short words that felt heavier than blows. Breathing became part of the pattern. You could not gasp and snatch for air like a boy sprinting for fun. You had to draw breath in small, controlled pieces, between orders, between impacts, under the weight of wood and bronze. Sometimes they made you stand in full kit, shoulder to shoulder in the heat, not moving at all. Minutes stretched into something longer, heavier. Sweat crawled down your back. A fly landed on your cheek and you could not lift a hand to brush it away. Your arm ached, your legs trembled, your neck stiffened under the helmet's weight. If someone shifted too much, the line rippled, and the instructor saw. Hold. That word could last forever. Over time, you began to feel something new. The moment when the line closed around you and you were no longer just yourself. The man on your left leaned into his shield, and you felt his weight against yours. The man on your right breathed in time with you. The sound of 30, 40 hearts and lungs merged into one low, steady engine. You pushed forward together, you dropped your spears together, you stepped back together, never breaking the wall. You learned that fear feels different in a line. Alone, it is sharp and frantic, clawing at your throat, demanding that you turn and run. In formation, it spreads out, becomes a dull, steady pressure that you carry with the others. You still feel it, but it no longer makes decisions for you. The shield, the man on your left, the man on your right, the voice at your back, those decide. There were full-speed drills too. They would line you up, helmets on, spears ready, and put another group opposite. Then they would make you run. Not a wild charge, not broken chaos, but a controlled rush that still rattled your bones. The two lines met with a noise that filled your skull wood on wood. Bronze on bronze, men grunting, breath tearing out of throats. Your shoulder slammed into your shield slammed into their shields. Spear shafts bent and snapped. You remember the first time your spear point struck a real body, even if it was just another trainee in a padded vest. The shock travelled back into your hands in a bright, fast jolt. He went down, wind knocked out of him. You stumbled, almost lost your balance, then felt the man behind you shove your back lightly with his shield, pushing you upright again. Stay in the line, the instructor said. Everything else comes later. You learned to fight not for a kill, but for ground. Half a step gained, half a step held. Sometimes you practiced in rougher terrain. They took you out of the training yard and put you on rocky slopes, in narrow paths between stones near the edges of dry gullies. The line had to bend, compress, stretch, but never break. You had to adjust your feet, your weight, the angle of your shield. The instructors watched how you reacted when the ground under you betrayed you, when a stone rolled, when your heels slid. It was not enough to be strong. You had to be able to stay organized when the world itself tilted. At night, lying on whatever passed for bedding, muscles buzzing from exhaustion, you could still feel the ghost of the formation around you. Your left shoulder remembered the push of another shield. Your right side remembered the slight warmth of a body, just close enough to be a presence, not an intrusion. The idea of fighting alone began to feel strange, pointless. The older you grew, the clearer it became. In Sparta, glory was not a shining thing hovering over one head. It was a wall, a moving, breathing wall made of men who knew how to hold together. And then there was the first time you stood in a formation that included real veterans. Men who had seen real campaigns, not just drills. They did not talk much before the exercise, they simply took their places. When the command came and the line moved, you felt the difference immediately. The wall was heavier, more solid, as if someone had added stones to the base. They did not step too far, did not lean too late, did not waste breath. Standing among them was like being set into a finished machine. You understood two things that day. First, that you were not as good as you thought. Second, that one day someone younger would stand where you were standing and feel the same about you. Dust grits between your teeth now as the road carries you onward. The shield strap presses into your shoulder in exactly the way it did in training, only the weight is greater, the distance longer, but the habits are the same, shield to shield, shoulder to shoulder. The boy who entered the ago could not have walked like this for long. The man who grew out of him can walk until the sea and the mountains meet. You do not remember the exact day you first saw Leonidas up close. He was always there somewhere at the edge of things. Like a hill you learn to navigate around long before you think of climbing it. His name was part of the air long before his face fixed itself in your memory. At first, he was just a story. The king who did not live soft. The man who ate almost the same food as the soldiers, who trained with them, who did not disappear into a palace and stay there. In a world where most rulers wrapped themselves in comfort, the idea of a king with calluses on his hands was already a kind of legend. You remember one training day in particular. The sun sat heavy on your shoulders, and the dust in the yard turned every step into a small cloud. You were standing in a line of younger men, shields up, spears levelled, while the instructors walked back and forth, looking for someone to shout at. The drill had gone on long enough that your arms hummed and your vision narrowed at the edges. Then the instructors moved aside. Someone else stepped into the yard. You knew who he was before anyone said his name. Not because of his clothes, his armour was not covered in jewels, his cloak was the same deep red you had seen 1,000 times. It was the way the air changed around him, as if the space he took up was not quite available to anyone else. He did not look like a hero from a carved stone. His nose had clearly been broken at least once. Fine lines ran from the corners of his eyes. His beard was streaked with grey that had not been there in stories told a few years earlier. He carried no crown, only a soldier's gear, worn as if it belonged to him and not the other way round. He did not make a speech. He walked along the front of the line, slow and calm, watching. His gaze did not skim across you. It landed, stayed for a moment, then moved on, as if weighing something simple and important. You felt a strange twist in your chest. Not fear, not exactly pride, but the uncomfortable awareness of being seen far more clearly than you usually allowed. When he spoke, it was not to praise or threaten. "Raise them," he said, and the shields came up. "Closer," he said, and the line tightened, wood and bronze pressing together. "Breathe," he said, and you realized you had been holding your breath without noticing. He stepped up to your shield and pushed. Not with the full strength of a charge, just enough weight to test what you could hold. Your arm shook, your shoulder burned. You dug your feet deeper into the ground. For a heartbeat you thought you would lose it, that the shield would tilt, that you would fail in front of everyone. Then the pressure eased. He moved on to the next man, no praise, no insult. Just the simple fact that you had held, and that he had seen it. Later, when the drill ended and the yard slowly emptied, you sat with your back against the wall, letting your muscles cool and your breath settle. The instructors talked nearby in low voices. You caught pieces of their words' age, campaigns, choices made when others hesitated. None of it sounded like a legend. It sounded like a man who had done hard things for a long time and never stopped. On the road now, years later, he is not a distant figure at all. He is somewhere ahead in the column, and sometimes he falls back, walking along the side of the marching line, cloak stirred by the same dust that clings to you. When he passes near, the noise of quiet conversations dips for a moment, as if the march itself is listening. He does not bark at anyone to look straight or stiffen up. He just looks, the same way he did in the yard, measuring what is there, not what should have been. You notice details that would mean nothing on a statue. The way he shifts his shield slightly when the path narrows, instinctively protecting the man closest to the drop. The way he checks the faces of the older soldiers as carefully as the young. The way his jaw tightens not when the march is hard, but when a messenger approaches with new information. In the evenings, when the column halts and fires begin to spark into life, he does not vanish into a tent far from everyone else. He eats near the centre with commanders and veterans, but close enough that you can hear his voice if the wind is right. It is quiet, roughened by age and dust, but steady. You hear fragments of practical talk. How far to the next water? How long the supply wagons will take to catch up? Where Allied contingents are expected to join. No grand promises, no speeches about destiny, just problems and the most sensible way to handle them. Once, as you're checking a strap on your armour near the edge of the camp, you see him standing a little apart looking west, where Sparta lies beyond hills and distance. For a moment he looks less like a king and more like a man listening for something too quiet to reach his ears. Then someone calls his name, and the expression folds away, replaced by the same composed focus you have come to know. He understands exactly where this road is leading. That knowledge sits in his posture, in the way he conserves his strength, in the way he speaks. You can feel it even if no one says it out loud. You were shaped to obey commands. He was shaped to give them. But somewhere between those two facts lies a shared truth. Both of you are walking toward a narrow place where numbers matter less than willingness to stand and not move. The firelight flickers lower. The voices around you fade as the camp settles. Somewhere not far away, Leonidas is also lying down, his armour stacked within reach, his shield close by, his thoughts turned toward the same mountains and the same sea. The difference is that he carries, on top of his own fear and his own fatigue, the weight of every shield in this column. And tomorrow, when the road pulls you all onward again, he will walk out in front as if that weight is exactly what he was always meant to bear. News about the East never arrived all at once. It came in pieces. A rumour here, a frightened word there, a traveller who had seen too much and talked too quickly. Long before you set foot on this road, the story of what was coming had already begun to seep into Sparta like cold into stone. You remember the first time you heard the name behind it all? Xerxes. You were still training then, not yet old enough to stand in the front line, but old enough to understand that there were people in the world who ruled more than one city, more than one valley, more than one strip of coast. The Great King, they called him. A man who could sit under a carved ceiling and give an order that would send armies walking for months. At first it sounded distant, a different world. Palaces with painted walls, servants, gold, a sea of languages. Then came talk of ships. Many ships. You heard about an earlier attempt, a first wave led by another king, Darius, that had crashed on the plains of Marathon and broken, leaving dead men and broken pride on the sand. That story had its own heroes and its own lines of glory, but for you it was background noise. It belonged to older men, to another time. The important part was what followed. An insult remembered, a loss not forgiven. If you strike a man who owns only his own life, that is the end of it. If you strike a king who owns continents, he may decide to answer in a different scale. In the months before you marched, Sparta began to feel slightly different in ways you could not always name. The drills did not change, the punishments did not soften, the day still followed the same hard pattern, but there was a new current under it all. Messengers came more often, dusty men with tight faces going straight to the officials, to the ephors and the Gerousia, not stopping to share stories in the street. Riders from other cities, carrying sealed tablets and heavy looks. The older warriors talked a little more quietly in the evenings, when they thought you were not listening. You caught words like numbers, and bridges of boats, and whole peoples moving. You heard Athens more often than usual, and not always with the usual Spartan dryness. Sometimes, in the central square, men in cloaks you did not recognize argued with your leaders. Not the loud, theatrical argument of a market, but the sharp, controlled exchange of people who know that what they decide will decide other people's lives. You heard that a Persian army was gathering that was less an army and more a moving landscape. Not just soldiers, but servants, engineers, animals, wagons. A mass that drank rivers and bent roads under its weight. You heard about a fleet that could fill the horizon with sails and oars. Different cities reacted in different ways. Some talked about submitting, some talked about fighting at sea, some talked about hiding and waiting for the storm to pass. Sparta did not talk much. It watched. It measured. It listened. Then it began to move pieces. You remember one evening in particular. You were in the practice yard, putting your armour in order by the fading light, when a horn sounded from the centre of the city. Not an alarm, not the pattern for fire or for an attack, but the call for assembly. Older men went first, those with scars that told long stories, those whose opinions carried weight. They walked with that particular calm you recognise now on the road, the calm of people who know that the thing happening is serious and that their fear has to wait its turn. News flows fast even when no one wants it to. You and the others heard enough. The Persians had crossed into Greece again, not with a raiding party, not with a probing force, but with something meant to finish the conversation that began at Marathon. There would be battles at sea and on land. If the cities tried to face the flood in open country, they would be swallowed. There is, someone said, a place where numbers break. A narrow pass by the sea. Thermopylae, the hot gates. You did not understand all the politics behind it. Which city wanted what, who argued about leadership, who wanted to hold back and wait. The only part that mattered to you was simple. Spartans would go to that pass. Not the whole army, not at once. A small, hard core. Enough to hold, to delay, to show everyone else that the flood could be resisted. Why not more? Why only a few hundred? You did not have the full answer then. You heard fragments, that Sparta could not empty itself with a religious festival approaching, that someone had to stay to watch the helots, that sending a king with a hand-picked guard would be both obedience to the laws and a message in itself. What you understood clearly was this. Whoever went to Thermopylae was not being sent to win. They were being sent not to come back. When the list began to form, it did not come with drums or banners. Names were chosen quietly. Men were called aside. You heard the rule, and it settled in your stomach like a stone. Only those with a living son would go. On the surface it sounded almost kind. Their line would not end with them. Their names would have a chance to move forward in the mouths of children. Underneath, it meant something even sharper. Sparta was willing to risk them because it had already taken from them the one thing that mattered most, the certainty that their blood would continue. The day your own name was spoken, it was not done in front of a crowd. It was a simple thing. A commander looked at you, said your name, and added, "You will march." That was all. No explanation. No chance to refuse. You did not sleep much that night. You lay awake, eyes open in the dark, listening to the breathing of the men around you. You thought about the road to Thermopylae that you had never walked, about the sea pressing against the land, about the stories of the endless army coming from the east. You also thought about your son, about the way his hand had felt when it first wrapped clumsily around your finger, about the sound of his unsteady steps on the floor, a small weight somewhere in Sparta that would go on living whether you returned or not. By the time the first light crept into the room, the decision was not yours anymore. It belonged to the city, to the laws, to history, to the weight of all the training that had been hammered into your bones. You rose, took up your shield and spear, and stepped into the morning that led to the gate, to the assembly, to the 300. Now, with the road stretching ahead and the dust of marching feet in your mouth, the news from the east is no longer stories told in a square. It is a direction, a destination, a pressure pushing you forward. Somewhere beyond the line of hills, the great king's army is moving like a slow storm, and you, shaped by cold nights and hard mornings, are walking to a narrow place where that storm will finally be forced to squeeze through a gap just wide enough for 300 men to matter. The choice has been made, not by you, not by the men around you, but by the city and its quiet arithmetic. 300 names, 300 lives to spend. Word travels faster than any official announcement. Men know when something has shifted, even before they hear the details. The way some shoulders stiffen when a commander passes. the way a conversation dies when certain men are called aside, the way people stop talking about if and start using when without noticing. The rule is simple, only those who already have a son, simple and sharp. Around you there are men just as strong, sometimes stronger, men with scars that go deeper, with more campaigns behind them, men who have trained at your side, fought beside you in border raids and skirmishes. Some of them are not chosen, and you know exactly why. Their children have not yet been born, or they were and are gone, or they never came at all. There is a strange look in their eyes when the pattern becomes clear, not anger, not exactly relief, something in between. One man, older than you by 10 years, laughs once when he realizes what saved him. It is not a joyful sound, more like a cough with humor wrapped around it. Seems I'm suddenly too valuable, he says, or not valuable enough. Depends how you look at it. Another just nods to you when he understands that you will march and he will stay. No words. The nod is complicated. It holds pride and pity and something like apology, all pressed into one short movement of the head. The men who are chosen do not shout about it. There is no cheering. Your name is one thread in a long list. It is spoken in a normal tone, like an order to fetch water or to change guard. The words, "You will march with the king," are not loud, but they settle heavily in your chest. From that moment on, everything looks the same and different at once. The training yard is still the training yard. The weapons racks are still lined with wood and iron. The walls are the same stone, but every drill now feels like a rehearsal for one specific performance, and there will be no second run if something goes wrong. You begin to notice the other faces that carry the same quiet knowledge. The man with the crooked nose who keeps checking the straps of his greaves, the one with the thick scar on his forearm who has started sharpening his spearhead with just a little more focus, the one who moves his left shoulder in a small circle whenever he thinks no one is watching, testing an old injury. At home the air changes too. Your house does not suddenly fill with tears. There are no long embraces, no speeches at the door. Life continues outwardly as it did before. Food is cooked, water is drawn, tools are put away. But under every movement, under every ordinary task, there is a quiet awareness that this rhythm is fragile, that it may soon be missing one set of footsteps. Your son is still small. He does not understand exactly what it means that his father has been chosen. For him, the world is immediate. He tugs at your cloak. He holds onto your wrist with small fingers. He looks at your shield not as a symbol, but as something large and interesting. You lift him once, feeling the familiar weight settle against your chest. He smells of smoke from the hearth, and the dust of the yard where he fell earlier. His hands pat clumsily at the bronze rim of your shield, curious and unafraid. Someone will one day tell him where you went. Someone will say the word Thermopylae in front of him, and his life will bend around that word in ways he cannot yet imagine. The city prepares as you prepare, not loudly. Sparta rarely does anything loudly unless it has to. Armor is checked and rechecked, straps replaced, cloaks inspected, sandals reinforced. Nothing here is for show. There will be no time to fix a broken buckle in a narrow pass with the enemy in front of you and behind. Everything that can fail must fail now, while there is still a chance to mend it. You see Leonidas more often now. He moves among the chosen with the same calm focus as on the road, only here his eyes linger a little longer. He's not looking for perfect bodies. He is measuring something behind the eyes, the ability to stand in one place when every animal instinct screams to move. He speaks to smaller groups, not to the whole 300 at once, sometimes to 10 men, sometimes to 5, sometimes to 1. You hear some of those conversations from a distance. "You have seen battle," he says to one veteran. "You know what it will smell like there." To another, "Your son is strong?" "Yes, my king." "Good. Then he'll carry your name, whatever happens." With you the exchange is brief. He looks at you for a long second, as if fitting you into some inner arrangement of pieces. "You trained under so-and-so?" he asks, naming one of your old instructors. "Yes, my king." "He drove you hard?" "Yes." "Good. Then you will not expect this to be easier. There is no promise after that. No, I will watch your back, or you will stand near me. There is only the simple acknowledgement that both of you know where this is going. In the days before departure, you start to read the city differently. You notice the way older men watch you when you pass, their eyes following the line of your shield, your spear, your step. They do not salute, they do not call out. but there is a recognition there, a silent marking. That man is going to the hot gates. Women watch too, some with faces as hard as river stones, some with eyes that shine just a little too much in the morning light. They do not run after their husbands or sons. They do not pull them back. Sparta has no room for that. But you can feel the tension in the air as you walk through streets that have been home all your life, suddenly knowing how it will feel to leave them behind. On the last night before the march, sleep does not come quickly. The room that has been just a place to lie down for so many years feels smaller than usual, more crowded with thoughts. You lie on your back, staring at the dark ceiling. Around you, the others are breathing in uneven patterns. Someone turns over, the sound of cloth scraping stone. Someone mutters once in his sleep and falls silent again. You think of the agoj, of the training yard, of the countless times you have stood in line, shield pressed to shield, waiting for an order. You think of your father's 2 words, walk straight. You think of your mother's quiet condition, if the gods allow. You think of your son, small and warm, curled against his blanket somewhere else in this city, unaware that the world has just placed a weight on his name. The knowledge that you have been chosen sits in your chest like a stone, but not a sharp one anymore. It has been handled, turned over, accepted. It is simply what is true. Outside, Sparta sleeps its hard, dreamless sleep. Inside, 300 hearts beat in the dark, already leaning toward the road. When morning comes, and the orders are spoken, and the line forms for real, there will be no surprise. You will step into your place, shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield, among those who have been measured and selected for one specific purpose. Not because you are guaranteed to win, but because the city has decided you're acceptable to lose. Morning comes without mercy and without drama. No special dawn, no strange colour in the sky. Just light, thin and grey at first, slipping into the cracks of the room and pushing back the dark. Someone moves near you. Cloth rustles, a shield strap creaks, a low cough. The night is over. Whatever you thought, whatever you hoped for or argued with in silence has no power now. You sit up, the same hard bed, the same stone walls, the same tunic folded where you left it. Everything looks like any other day, and at the same time nothing feels normal at all. Around you the other men rise too. There is no talk at first. Sleep still clings to some faces, but underneath the heavy eyes there is a clear awareness. This is not a training day. This is not a border patrol. This is the day you step out of Sparta on a road that does not bend back. You pull on your tunic. Your hands move by habit, but the cloth feels different against your skin, as if the moment has added weight to it. You tie your belt, check the fit of your greaves, the spacing of each strap. Everything must sit right. A loose buckle now is a broken defense later. Your shield is waiting in its usual place, round, solid, familiar. You lift it, slide your arm through the paw packs, take the grip in your hand. The weight settles onto your shoulder, and your body answers with a quiet, tired acceptance. This is what it was made to do. The spear rests beside it. You take it up, feeling the balance point you know so well. The spear almost seems to find its place in your hand by itself, helmet last. You do not put it on yet. For a few more breaths, you want to feel the air on your face. The room empties slowly. Men step outside in 2s and 3s, boots knocking softly on stone. You are one of the last to leave. Not because you are stalling, simply because you stood still for a moment longer, looking at the shape of the bed, the line of shadow along the wall, the exact way the light falls into the room through the narrow window. It will all be here tonight. You may not. You walk down the corridor. The air is cooler than inside, touched by the early hour. The door to the street stands open. Your father is there again, your mother too. They knew when to come without being told. Sparta is not a city of surprises. When 300 men march out with a king, everyone who needs to know knows exactly when to stand in the doorway. Your father's eyes take you in quickly, not searching for flaws, not questioning the choice that has already been made, just making a last quiet record. This is how my son looked when he walked out to Thermopylae. He says nothing this time. He already gave you his words. Walk straight. Your mother's hands are looser today, not clenched so hard. Maybe she did her fighting with herself in the dark while you were trying to sleep. Now, in the light, there is only a stillness that feels sharper than panic. She steps closer than yesterday, close enough that you can see the tiny lines at the corners of her mouth, the way her throat moves when she swallows. No tears. Not here. Not now. She reaches out and touches your arm just once, just above the wrist, where the skin is bare between the edge of the tunic and the bend of the shield strap. The touch is brief, but it sinks deeper than any speech. "Bring your name back," she says. "If not yourself, then at least your name." It is as close to a blessing as this place allows. You nod. Words feel clumsy, and besides, there is nothing new to say. You have already promised the only thing you can promise. You will stand. Then you step out into the street. Sparta is awake, not in a noisy way, in a focused way. Men not chosen for the march stand in doorways or lean against walls, watching as you pass. Some are too old to fight now, some too young, some simply assigned to other duties. You feel their eyes following you, not with envy, not with contempt, but with a tough kind of respect. A few nod. One lifts his hand to his chest in a small, restrained salute. Another adjusts the strap on your shield silently as you walk by, fingers quick and practiced, then steps back without a word. Women stand in thresholds, cloaks pulled around their shoulders, hair tied back. Some hold small children on their hips, others stand with hands empty but held tightly together. You hear no wailing, no shouting, no curses thrown at the city or the gods. This is not a place that rewards noisy despair. Instead, you see set jaws, straight backs, eyes that shine a little too bright in the morning light. A few lips move silently in words you cannot hear. Maybe prayers, maybe names. Children watch with a different sort of attention. Their eyes are wide, trying to drink in everything at once. The red cloaks, the bronze helmets carried under arms, the round shields, the spears. For them, this is something between a story and a lesson. One day they will stand where you are standing now, or they will stand where their mothers stand, watching. You reach the place where the 300 are gathering. The shape of the formation is already emerging, an almost living thing forming out of individuals. Men fall into their assigned places with very little need for orders. Habit is stronger than confusion. You step into your space. Shield to the left, spear to the right. Men on either side, also taking position. The line thickens, files stretch back. The morning light catches on bronze and makes the whole group look briefly like a single piece of metal. Leonidas is there, near the front. He wears his armor as he always does, nothing extra, nothing decorative. His face is lined, his eyes clear. He speaks with other officers for a few moments, gesturing with short, precise movements. No wasted energy. Finally, he turns to face the assembled 300 and the allies who will march with you at least part of the way. The noise along the edges of the square fades. He does not shout. "You know why we go," he says, "and you know why we do not all go." Everyone understands. The city cannot empty itself. The laws, the festivals, the obligations to the gods, all of these shape how many shields can leave and how many must stay. Thermopylae will be held by a small, hard point of men from Sparta and other cities, while the rest of Greece wakes up to the fact that it must either fight or kneel. "We will hold the pass as long as we can," Leonidas continues, "long enough for others to gather, long enough to show that they can stand. There is no talk of dying for glory, no promise that songs will be sung, only the clear, unadorned fact of what is expected." He lifts his shield. "Form up, we march." The formation tightens one last time. You adjust the strap on your shoulder, you shift your grip on the spear, you taste dust already beginning to lift from the ground. The first step is almost gentle, leather on stone, then the next, and the next. The column turns and begins to flow out of the square, down the streets toward the edge of the city. Houses slide past on either side. Doorways frame faces that you will remember later, perhaps, as flashes dark hair, a pale cloak, a child's hand raised in a small, uncertain wave. As you pass the last line of buildings, the city thins out behind you. Stone gives way to open ground. The road becomes clearer, stretching forward between low hills. No one calls you back. No one runs after you. Sparta does not pull on the sleeves of those it sends away. It lets them go with all the weight already placed inside their chests. You do not look over your shoulder, not because you are not tempted, but because you know that if you start looking back now, you will keep doing it. And the road ahead is long, and your neck will need to be free when the time comes to lower the helmet and fix your gaze on the narrow strip of world in front of your shield. The line moves on. The city shrinks behind you. Ahead, somewhere beyond the rising land and the turning path, the hot gates wait. For now, they are just a name. For now, there is only the march, the steady rhythm of feet, and the slow drift of your thoughts into a place where the sound of the column can almost lull you towards sleep, even as you walk toward a place where sleep and death might meet much sooner than you once imagined. The first thing you notice once the city falls behind is the sound. In Sparta, every step is pinched between walls, bounced off stones, swallowed by corners. Out here, the rhythm of the march opens up. The same leather, the same shields, the same breath, but now the sky is wide above you, and the sound spreads, rolls forward and back along the column like a slow wave. The land is familiar at first. Fields you have run past as a boy. Olive groves where you once did drills until your legs shook. Hills you have seen 100 times from training marches that always looped back home. Only now you do not loop. You pass the places where you used to turn, and you keep going. The road under your sandals is hard-packed earth and scattered stones. Dust lifts at each step, thin at first, then thicker as the sun climbs. It settles on your calves, on your cloak, on the lower curve of your shield. By mid-morning, everyone wears the same light coat of pale powder. You taste it at the back of your throat when you swallow. The weight on your arm becomes a constant. Shield, spear, pack. Old companions, heavier than you remember, lighter than you feared. The column breathes. Sometimes it tightens where the path narrows, men drawing a little closer, shields brushing. Sometimes it loosens when there is more space, ranks stretching slightly in length. It is not chaos. It is an organism adjusting to the shape of the world beneath it. Voices flow around you in low, steady currents. No one is shouting. This is not a parade. Men talk to the ones nearest them, short remarks born from the kind of familiarity that does not need decoration. Strap slipping. Fix it at the next halt. Your left sandal's jealous of your right one. Then it can fall off first. Laughter comes in small bursts that fade quickly, like sparks from a fire. The jokes are not clever and not kind, but they are warm in their own hard way. They say we are still here. We can still waste breath on teasing. Dust, heat, weight, step, breath. The hours arrange themselves into a pattern. From time to time a shout comes from the front, a slight change of pace, an adjustment in formation. You do not see exactly why, maybe a bend in the road, a patch of ground worse than the rest, but the order moves backward like a slow echo, and you obey it when it reaches you without needing to know the reason. That is someone else's job. The sun climbs higher, the air thickens, sweat crawls down your spine, soaks into the padding under your armour. You think of the training marches in summer, the times when instructors seemed determined to see who would drop first. This is not like that. No one here is trying to break you. Instead, the march is measured, careful, fast enough to eat distance, slow enough not to burn strength you will need later. When the call for a halt finally comes, it moves along the line like a visible loosening. Shoulders drop slightly. Steps shorten. The column stutters to a stop section by section until the road is full of men standing still again. You shift your shield off your arm, feeling the sudden, almost shocking lightness of your shoulder. Muscles complain as they relax, as if offended by being relieved of their purpose. You roll your neck, stretch your fingers, let your hand rest flat against the rough wood of the shield for a moment, like you're soothing an animal between tasks. Water skins are passed along. The liquid is warm, taste of leather and dust, and it is still one of the best things you have ever swallowed. You take only what you need, no more. This is not the place to be greedy. Bread and dried figs appear from packs. You eat standing, leaning the shield against your thigh, eyes half on your own hands, half on the landscape. The fields have thinned out. There are more open patches now, more scrub and stone. In the far distance, hazy under the noonlight, you think you can just make out the faint line of the sea. First time this far? The question comes from the man on your right, the one with the scar that curls from his temple into his hairline. Yes, you answer. He nods, as if confirming something he already guessed. Feels the same as closer, he says. Just more of it. Then, after a pause, the sea's better when you're not marching toward an army across it, but it will still look good when we get closer. You finish eating. The halt is not long, it never is. Men sit briefly, stretch legs, adjust straps, and then the word comes again, and everyone is on their feet before the echo dies. The afternoon march is heavier. The sun leans down harder on the back of your neck. The air shimmers over bare patches of earth. You fall into a quieter state where thoughts slow and spread. Pieces of memory drift up and pass in front of your inner eye like dust motes in a shaft of light. The training yard, the agorge, the first time you lifted a proper shield, the first real wound you took in practice, and the way the instructor told you to stop staring at your own blood as if it were something special. Your son's laugh, your father's nod, your mother's hand on your arm that last morning. None of it forms a complete picture. It is all fragments. They rise and fall in time with your steps. Nothing clings for long. Even your past has to keep pace or be left behind. When the sun begins to slide down at last, the light softens. The heat eases its grip. Long shadows grow across the road, reaching for your feet and sliding away again. The order to make camp comes as a relief, and not a surprise. You move off the road with the others to a piece of ground chosen for being flat enough, defensible enough, close enough to water. The shield comes off your arm again. The spear goes point down into the earth, standing beside you like a thin, silent companion. Men around you are already moving with practiced economy, some gathering wood, some checking the ground for stones before they lie down, some seeing to the animals and the gear. Soon there are small fires scattered through the camp. The smoke rises slowly into the evening air, thin and blue-grey. The smell of burning wood folds itself into the steady background of sweat and dust. You sit with a group of 5 or 6 others, shield at your side, legs stretched out, back propped against a rock that is just high enough to take some of the day's weight off your spine. Someone hands you a piece of bread, harder than the one from midday, and a strip of dried meat. You chew slowly, jaw muscles tired like everything else. Conversation drifts around the circle. Someone complains about his sandals in a tone that makes it clear he will not change them unless they fall apart entirely. Someone else lists the things he misses least about home-certain neighbours, certain smells, certain chores. There is a short argument about which city among your allies has the worst wine. The humour is dry, edged, but there is comfort in it. Laughter here does not erase the knowledge of why you are on this road. It simply makes it possible to sit with that knowledge without being crushed. When the talk dies down, you lean your head back against the rock and look up. The sky is deepening from pale blue to something darker, and the first stars are starting to appear, faint at first, then clearer as the light drains from the horizon. You have looked at these same stars from Sparta many times. Out here, they feel closer, old and indifferent. They watched the last war with Persia. They will watch this one. They will watch whoever comes after. Somewhere not far away, Leonidas is also in this camp. There is a small glow where his part of the encampment sits, not much brighter than the others. A king and his 300 do not travel with a portable palace. Just with enough fire to see by and enough food to keep moving. One by one, men settle down, shields laid where they can be reached in a single movement. Spears placed so they will not be stepped on in the dark. Cloaks wrapped around shoulders. The ground is hard, but your body's too tired to argue. You lie down, feeling the day's march still buzzing faintly in your legs. Your shoulder feels strangely light without the shield, as if something important is missing. Your hand finds the rim of it anyway, fingers resting on the wood just to know it is there. The last voices fade into murmurs, then into the low, even sound of breathing. The fires burn lower, embers glowing like eyes half closed. Above you, the sky spreads out, wide and calm. Ahead of you, somewhere beyond the curve of the world, is the narrow pass where stone and sea meet. For now, there is only this patch of earth, this short slice of night, this temporary stillness between days of walking. You let your eyes close. The rhythm of the march is still in your bones, but slowly it quiets, softening into something like a cradle's sway. Sleep comes, not as an enemy to fight, but as a brief, indifferent ally, wrapping you in the same darkness that covers your brothers in the line, the king in his cloak, and the long road still waiting for your feet. Morning comes as a thin, colourless light sliding over the camp. Someone stirs near you, the scrape of a sandal, the low grunt of a man returning to his body after sleep. Your eyes open to a sky that is still pale, the stars washed away but not completely gone from memory. For a moment you do not move. The ground is hard under your back, the cloak rough against your neck. Your hand is still resting on the rim of your shield. You feel the shape of it before you even look. Solid, familiar, waiting. Then the day pulls you up. You stand, roll your shoulders, feel the line of soreness along your spine where the earth pressed all night. Around you, others are doing the same. No one complains. Pain is old news here. The only question is whether everything still works well enough to carry shield and spear. The camp folds itself away in a series of practiced movements. Cloaks tied, straps checked, fires kicked into dirt. Soon the column is forming again like a river re-entering its banks. You take your place, shield on your arm, spear in your hand, eyes on the road ahead. The land has changed while you slept, not dramatically, just enough for you to notice. The fields are larger now, the houses a little closer to the road. Olive trees give way here and there to vineyards, their lines neat against the gentle slopes. Smoke rises from a few chimneys in the distance, thin and straight in the cool morning air. As you march, the first village appears. It is not grand. A cluster of low houses with flat or gently sloping roofs, a well in the main square, a small shrine where a thin column of incense curls upward. Chickens scatter as the head of the column approaches. A dog barks once, then, sensing the weight of what is passing, falls silent and watches. People gather quickly. They always do when armed men appear. Men stand with arms folded or hands on hips, eyes narrowed against the light, measuring the column as if weighing it in their minds. Some have the look of farmers pulled away from their work, tools still in hand. Others wear the short cloaks and cleaner tunics of those who handle trade or town business. Women appear in doorways and along the edges of the square, some with jars on their shoulders, some with children clinging to their legs. The children stare openly. For them, this sight is part terror, part wonder. You see the way their eyes track the red cloaks, the polished helmets, the shields and spears. To them you are the shape of a story walking past. The column does not stop fully, but it slows as a few local leaders step forward to speak with your officers and with Leonidas. You cannot hear every word, but pieces reach you as you pass. They say the army is endless. Ships, so many they darken the water. Some will go to the fleet, some to the pass. A woman near the well presses a small bundle of dried figs into the hands of a younger soldier at the edge of the line, almost shyly. He nods once in thanks, tucks them into his belt without breaking step. Another villager brings out a jar of water, its sides damp with coolness, and holds it steady while men take quick mouthfuls on the move. There is fear in their faces, but also something like relief. Seeing you makes the danger more real and less abstract at the same time. The village falls behind, the road rolls on. Later that day, you meet the first Allied group. You hear them before you see them, a different pattern of marching feet, the clink of armour that is not quite the same as yours. When the column crests a low rise, you see them on the road ahead, waiting for you to close the distance. They are not Spartans, you can tell at a glance. Their cloaks are different colours. Their shields bear unfamiliar devices, animals, symbols, patterns you do not recognise. Some wear heavier armour, some lighter. Their line is solid, but looser than yours. As the columns draw together, the officers move forward. Words pass between them, names of cities, numbers, agreements. You catch fragments again. Thespians, Thebans, from Phocis, to guide you through their land. The Allied soldiers look at you with open curiosity. You feel it in the way their eyes linger on your shields, on your helmets, on the easy way your formation breathes in and out as it adjusts to share the road. Some of them nod, as if acknowledging a reputation that travelled faster than you did. One man near the front of their group meets your gaze directly. There is no challenge there, only a quiet mutual recognition. He will be in the same narrow space soon enough. As the combined force begins to move, the road grows more crowded. Two streams join into one. The sound deepens, the dust thickens, but there is a strange comfort in it. You're no longer just 300 men in red cloaks on a lone road. You're part of something larger now, a gathering of different cities facing the same storm. During a short halt, you find yourself close enough to hear a band of Allied soldiers talking. They say there are more men in the Persian camp than there are stars. Then someone is bad at counting stars. I heard they built a bridge of ships just to cross their own army over the water. And I heard they drink rivers dry where they camp. You heard a lot. How many have you actually seen? None. There is a nervous laugh at that. Stories grow longer with distance. You listen without interrupting. You know how tales shift as they move from mouth to mouth, but even under the exaggeration, there is something solid. The enemy is vast. If Greece tries to stand against that whole mass in open plains, it will be crushed. You remember the word from earlier, Thermopylae, the hot gates, a place where the land itself will shrink that mass, where all those numbers will have to squeeze into a path small enough for your shield to matter. As the day wears on, the road begins to tilt and turn more often. Hills rise higher on either side. The scent in the air changes subtly. Less earth, more salt. The sea is close now, even when you cannot see it. In one small town near the coast, where you pause to refill water skins, the fear in the air is sharper. People speak more quickly. They have seen more than rumours. A fisherman, skin burned dark by sun and wind, stands near the edge of the road and talks to anyone who will listen, voice low and urgent. I went farther than usual, he says, saw their ships from a distance, a line on the horizon that did not end, sails and more sails behind them, like a moving wall. Someone asks how many. He shakes his head. I can count to 100, he says. After that I do not try. It was more than that. You imagine it as you walk again later, a sea not empty and open, but crowded with wood and cloth and men. An army on land and another on water, both moving toward the same narrow place where you will stand. The knowledge does not make your steps heavier. If anything, it clarifies them. You were not chosen to face an equal. You were not chosen for a fair fight. You were chosen to be a stone in a narrow channel, to force the flood to split around you, to slow it any way you can. By evening the land presses closer, hills to one side, the faint sound of waves somewhere beyond the other. Camp is made again, this time with allied fires burning beside Spartan ones. Different accents mix in the night air, different cities, different gods honoured at different shrines. But when the talk turns to what lies ahead, the differences blur. The pass is close now, someone says near you. Tomorrow we may see it, another replies. You eat, drink, listen. The sky darkens, stars return, the same indifferent witnesses to everything below. Lying down, cloak around your shoulders, shield within reach, you feel the presence of more men breathing and shifting in the dark. Not just your 300, but many more. The army is still small compared to what is coming from the east, but it is no longer just a thin line on a lonely road. You close your eyes. The image of ships on the horizon and dust clouds above distant columns flickers once, then fades. Whatever waits at the hot gates will become real soon enough. Tonight there is only the shared silence of men who have chosen, or been chosen, to walk toward that place. Sleep comes, carrying with it the slow, steady echo of marching feet, and the low murmur of voices from cities that once argued with each other, now breathing in time for the same hard reason. By the time the sun rises again, the air already feels different. Cooler at first, then quickly warming, but with a new taste to it. There is salt on your lips, even though you have not yet seen the water. The land itself seems to be tilting gently, guiding you towards something it has been holding for a long time. The camp unwraps itself the same way as always. Cloaks shaken out, straps tightened, fires scattered into ash. Men fall into formation. The column gathers weight. Yet under the habit there is a quiet tension, as if everyone can feel that the blank space on the map in their heads is about to fill in. You start to walk. The road bends more often now. On your left the hills grow steeper, their faces closer, dark with trees and rock. On your right there is more open space, but not much. The ground falls away in a long slope. You cannot see the sea yet, but you can hear it now, a faint, irregular sound beneath the march. A long exhale, a pause, a distant crash. Waves, beating somewhere out of sight. Dust rises in smaller clouds. The breeze off the water pulls at the edges of your cloak, tugs faintly at the tops of the spears. The smell of sun-baked earth is laced with something sharper and cleaner. A murmur moves along the column, a current of low words passed from the front to the back. We're close. Not far now. You'll see it soon. You round another bend, and the road narrows between rising stone on one side and a falling drop toward the unseen shore on the other. The sound of the sea grows louder. The air slips in cooler gusts across your face, and then you see it. At first it is only a slight pinch in the distance where the land seems to squeeze together. The line of the road disappears between two shoulders of rock, and does not show itself again beyond them. As you move closer, the shape clarifies. The mountains lean in from the left, dark and solid, their slopes scarred by old paths and thin lines of scree. To the right, the land falls sharply toward the water. The sea itself glints between gaps, a band of shifting silver-blue, restless and bright compared to the heavy, patient stone. Between rock and water, the road passes through a narrow throat. This is Thermopylae, the hot gates. You have heard the word many times, spoken in meeting halls, in planning, in half-whispered conversations at night. But hearing is one thing, seeing is another. Here, the great idea becomes simple geometry. Here, the wide world is forced to line up and walk through a gap not much wider than a few chariots set side by side. The column slows as orders ripple backward. Closer now, you can see more details. A rough wall of stones stands partway across the path, broken in places, old work falling apart under time and weather. Steam curls faintly from the ground near it, from shallow pools at the base of the cliffs where hot water seeps up from inside the earth. The smell of sulphur is faint but clear. The springs breathe like the land itself, warm exhalations rising in thin, ghostly threads. The pass is not completely flat. The road undulates gently, a shallow wave of earth caught between higher waves of stone and sea. There is just enough room for a formation to stand, to step forward, to step back. Not enough for the enemy to spread out and swallow you in width. You feel something settle inside your chest as your eyes draw lines over the ground. You imagine a wall rebuilt where the old stones sag. You imagine shields locking in front of it. You imagine spear points bristling over the top, a thorn hedge of bronze. There are already people here, local men from the region sent to guide and support, other contingents who arrive before you. They have set up basic defences, but nothing yet with the weight of your training behind it. When the column finally comes to a full stop, the silence lands strangely. After so many hours of continuous motion, stillness feels almost loud. You step out of the line when ordered, shifting to the side of the road, letting other units pass, then folding back in as officers reposition the force. The air is full of voices, now measured commands, requests for tools, instructions to clear this, move that, check that path. You set your shield down for a moment and roll your shoulder. The relief is immediate and short-lived. Soon you will pick it up again, this time not for a march, but for something more final. Look, someone says quietly near you, nodding toward the sea. Between two shoulders of rock you can see it clearly now. The water stretches out almost to the edge of the world, a great restless plain. Sunlight breaks on its surface in a scatter of bright shards. Farther out, darker bands suggest deeper currents. It looks empty. You know it is not. Somewhere beyond the horizon, ships are moving. A fleet large enough to change the shape of the coast if it wishes. But here, in this narrow place, all that power will have to obey the stone. All those men will have to pass through this gap. You turn your head and look up at the cliffs. Paths thread along their sides, narrow and half hidden by brush. Goat tracks, hunters' trails, ways around. You understand, without needing anyone to explain, that these paths are both opportunity and danger. From up there, a man with a bow could rain arrows down onto a tight formation. From up there, an enemy could sneak behind a wall that thinks it is safe. Already officers from the local allies are talking about those routes, pointing, gesturing, arguing. Scouts will go up. Watchers will be placed. Every stone around you has to be considered a door as well as a wall. Work begins almost immediately. Some men are sent to gather stones, to rebuild and strengthen the half-ruined wall. Others clear brush and loose rock from the ground where the formation will stand, making sure no one will trip when it matters most. Others check the line of the shore, looking for places where the sea might allow a flanking path at low tide. You are assigned to one of the working parties. There is no glory in lifting rocks, but there is necessity. You set your shield aside with the others for the moment and put your hands to the rough surfaces. The stones are irregular, heavy, awkward to carry. They scrape your fingers, bruise your forearms. Sweat rises quickly as you walk back and forth, piece by piece, adding to the base of the wall. The sound of construction fills the air, grunts, calls, the scrape of rock on rock, the soft thud as stones fall into place. As you work, you keep glancing at the throat of the pass, at the exact place where your feet will stand when the time comes. You measure the width in steps. You imagine the line of shields, the depth of the files behind you, the distance from the front rank to where the wall stands. Hours pass like this, folded into labour. By the time the light begins to slant, the wall looks different. Not perfect, not invincible, but higher, thicker, more serious. When the order comes to halt the work for the day, you feel the ache in your hands and back only because it has room to reach you. You pick up your shield again and feel its weight with new understanding. Soon, this circle of bronze and wood will be part of the only thing standing between that rebuilt wall and whatever the East decides to throw at it. Camp is made a little farther back from the narrowest point, on a patch of ground where the scent of the hot springs blends with the smell of men and fire. The steam drifts in pale ribbons across the evening air, ghostly and calm as if the earth is indifferent to the plans of those who stand on it. You sit, eat, drink, listen to the murmur of the sea and the low rush of water boiling up from beneath the rock. Voices around you speak of the past now with a different tone, not as an idea, but as a place they have walked, measured, touched. "It's tight," someone says. "Good," someone else answers. "Tight is what we need." As darkness falls, the cliffs become long, black shapes against a deepening sky. The gap between them is a slice of night, the road a thin, pale line disappearing into it. You watch that gap for a while, as if expecting shapes to appear there already. Shields, spears, foreign armour glinting in torchlight. Nothing comes, not yet. The sea keeps breathing, the springs keep steaming, the stars climb into place above the stone. You lie down with your cloak around you and your shield close at hand, the image of the past clear in your mind. Rock on one side, water on the other, a narrow road between them. This is where the story will either hold or break, and you are already inside its throat, waiting for the first breath of the enemy to reach you. Morning at Thermopylae feels different from morning on the road. You wake to the sound of water instead of the shuffle of a breaking camp. The hot springs breathe and hiss nearby, low and steady, like something sleeping just beneath the earth. The sea adds its own rhythm, a distant, uneven sigh against the shore. Between those two sounds, the camp's small noises slide into place almost quietly. You sit up, pull your cloak tighter for a moment against the lingering chill, then push it off your shoulders. Dew clings to the ground. Your fingers brush wet stone as you reach for your shield. It feels strange to wake in a place you will defend instead of a place you will leave. The pass is still half-shadowed. The cliffs on either side catch the early light at their tops, leaving the road below in a long grey corridor. The rebuilt wall, rough and heavy, cuts across part of that corridor like a blunt tooth. Steam curls thinly from the ground near its base, unchanged by any human plan. There is no order to form a column today. Today you form a line. The officers call men by units, placing them in the narrowest parts first. You move to your assigned position with the others, boots crunching lightly on gravel, dust puffing underfoot. The ground is mostly flat now, cleared of loose rock, but you can still feel subtle slopes and dips beneath your soles. You mark them automatically. Here the left foot will sit slightly higher. There the right heel might slide if you push too hard. You take your place in the front rank. Shield to the left, spear to the right. On your left, a man you've known since childhood. On your right, someone you met only a few days ago on the road, from another city, another dialect. But his shield touches yours just the same. Behind you, the second rank settles in, then the third, a human depth gathering behind the first wall of bronze. Closer, comes the order, shoulders touching, shields overlapping. You step half a foot to the side. The edge of your shield nestles more firmly behind the centre of the one to your left. The man on your right adjusts to cover your exposed arm. For a moment you feel crowded, boxed in. Then your body remembers this feeling as home. From above, it might look like nothing more than a strip of colour and metal in a stone throat. From where you stand, it feels like being a single scale on the back of something much larger. The commanders walk along the front, testing. They push at the wall of shields, not hard, but with enough force to see who yields, who leans, who stands, where they find a weakness. A man whose feet are too narrow, whose arm wobbles under pressure. They adjust the order, move a veteran into that spot, shift the uncertain one back a rank where he can learn behind stronger backs. Leonidas passes, slower here than on the road. He's not looking for effort, he's looking for certainty. His eyes move over faces, over the lines of shoulders, the angle of spears. When he stops, it is not always where you expect. Sometimes it is in front of a young man whose armour still looks new, sometimes in front of an older one with tired eyes. You, he says once to a soldier a few men down from you. Move back one rank. Your shoulder is good, your feet are not. You'll hold better there. There is no shame in the adjustment. The man nods, steps back, trades places with the one behind him. The line ripples and then smooths. Once everyone is set, the real work begins. Advance 3 steps, comes the order. You move forward, all together. 3 short, measured steps. Dust rises in a small cloud. Stop. Hold. Shields lock, spears angle forward. Back. This is harder. Your body wants to turn, you force it not to. 3 short, backward steps, keeping your face and your shield toward the imaginary enemy. The ground feels different under your heels, but your feet remember the drills and you do not trip. You repeat this again and again. Forward 3, back 3. Hold. Then the pattern changes. Right half step, hold, left half step, hold, close, open. You can feel the pass in every movement now. The way the slope pulls your footing slightly sideways when you step toward the sea. The way small stones roll under your heel if you're careless near the base of the wall. The way sound bounces back from the cliffs, making every command seem larger than the man who shouted it. At one point, the officers bring up another unit and place them opposite you, a mock enemy line. Not Persians, just your own allies, armour clinking, shields ready. For an hour you practice meeting them. Not at full force, not yet. You push until shields touch, then lean, feeling the combined pressure of bodies behind each wall. Spear shafts knock against each other. The air between the 2 lines becomes a tight space full of breath and wood and metal. Your muscles strain, then settle, as they find how much force is needed to hold this specific piece of ground. Remember, one commander calls out, his voice echoing off stone. They have more men, but not more path. Make them pay for every step. You can almost see it now. Not just exercise, but the future fight. Laid over the present, invisible to the eye and clear to the mind. When the drill ends, your arms tremble slightly from long tension. Your legs feel heavier, but also surer. This place is no longer a mystery. It is a set of distances, angles, and pressures that your body has recorded. The rest of the day is divided between more work on the defences and short, intense bursts of training. Some men cut down small trees and drag them into position to block side paths. Others dig shallow pits or clear lines of sight for archers on higher ground. Messages run back and forth between the different contingents, agreeing on signals, on fallback points, on where each city's men will stand when the time comes. You're sent with a small group to walk one of the paths that climbs along the cliff. It is narrow, no room for shields in a proper formation, just enough for a file of men, single or double, to pass. The view from up there is sharp and bright. The pass below looks even narrower from above, the line of men like a thin, dark seam stitched between rock and water. The sea stretches out farther than you imagined, a great sheet of hammered metal under the sun, its surface constantly shifting, never still. You look toward the distant horizon, where you know, because of all the stories, because of the fisherman's words, because of the messengers, an enemy fleet is moving. You see nothing yet except blue and light. On the inland side, the land rolls away in folds of hills and valleys. Somewhere out there, beyond what you can see, the Persian army is marching. A slow advance of dust and iron, horses and men, wheels and hooves and sandaled feet. You feel them without seeing them, as if the ground itself is carrying their approach. Your group marks the key turns in the path, notes where a watcher could stand unseen, where loose stones might give way under an unwary step. You speak little. This is not a place for noise. Every sound you make seems to go farther than it should, bouncing off rock and returning thinner. When you come back down to the main camp, the sun is already leaning westward. The shadows in the pass grow longer, pooling in cracks and dips, stretching across the road like dark fingers. You stand once more in the line for a final shorter drill at dusk. Now you know the ground. Now the formation feels less like an idea and more like a habit. Front rank, kneel. Second, ready. Third, hold. You drop to one knee, shield angled, spear raised slightly. The men behind you shift to cover the space above your head, points extending over your line. From the outside it would look like a layered wall wood, bronze, wood again, then a forest of spearheads. You hold that position until your thigh burns and your arm begins to shake from the static weight. Up. You rise in one smooth motion as the second rank sinks, The third adjusts. The pattern repeats over and over until the commands and the movements fuse together and no longer feel like separate things. By the time full dark begins to slide down the cliffs, the work is done for the day. Fires are lit again, small and controlled. Food is shared, water passed. Voices drop to a lower register, tired but steady. You sit with your back against the same rock as the night before, but the feeling is different now. Yesterday you were a traveller reaching a destination. Today you are a piece of the destination itself. You know where you will stand when the Persians arrive. You know where the man on your left will stand, where the man on your right will plant his feet. You know how many steps you can give up and still hold the line. You know how far you can push forward before the ground starts to lie to you. You chew your bread more slowly, not from lack of hunger, but because there is nothing to hurry toward in this moment. The waiting has truly begun. The road is behind you. Ahead there is only the narrow throat of the hot gates and the long, slow approach of an army you cannot yet see. Above, the stars come out again, a little sharper tonight, the sky clearer. Below, the springs still whisper, the sea still breathes, the fires still glow. You pull your cloak tighter, lay down with your shield near your hand, and close your eyes with the image of the pass imprinted on the inside of your skull. Even in the dark behind your lids you can see the line, the wall, the water, the rock. You are ready to hold. Now you just have to wait for something vast and distant to decide it is time to try and break you. Waiting is a strange kind of work. On the road each day had a clear shape. You walked, you rested, you walked again, you slept. At Thermopylae the shape of the day is different. You already stand where you are meant to stand. The world has narrowed to one place, and now time has to find a way to flow through it. The next morning, there is no sense of departure. You wake in the same patch of ground, with the same rock at your back, the same smell of steam and sea in the air. The cliff faces do not move. The wall does not move. You do. You stand, gather your gear, eat a short meal that tastes more of necessity than flavour. Then the day divides itself into pieces. Part of it is training in the line again. Not as long as yesterday, not as intense, but sharp enough to keep your body honest. You take your place, shield to shield, and run through the motions until they blur together. Advance, hold, step back, shift left, shift right, kneel, rise. The pass becomes less a piece of scenery and more a pattern under your feet. Every small stone you almost trip on you memorize. Every tiny dip in the ground that catches your heel you file away. Part of the day is work. You help drag more stones toward the wall, stacking them where someone higher ranked has decided they should be. You haul wood, help dig shallow trenches, carry water skins from the springs back to the men who are too busy to fetch it themselves. The springs are closer than you first realized. Thin channels of hot water run between rocks, steaming even when the air is cool. The ground around them is stained in colors no human hand painted. Yellow, white, rust red. It smells faintly of eggs and metal. Standing there with a line of leather skins, you catch yourself thinking, how odd it is to be drawing water from a place like this in order to prepare to meet an army. The rest of the day is made of small observations, the way the sound of the sea changes with the wind, the way the light slides along the cliff faces as the sun moves, the way different commanders from different cities argue and agree. Sometimes you see men from the allied contingents testing their own positions, talking among themselves, Thespians, Thebans, others, each group with its own habits, its own gestures. Some look at you with open curiosity, others with a flatter expression, as if trying to decide whether the stories about Spartans are exaggerated or not. You are also part of someone else's story now. They will go home if they can and say, I stood beside the 300 at Thermopylae. The first real sign that waiting will not last forever comes in the late afternoon of that day. It is not a horn, not a shout, not a sudden rush of orders. It is a change in the way men look toward the inland side of the pass. One by one, heads turn. Conversations die off halfway through sentences. You feel it like a shift in the wind. You follow their gaze. At first you see nothing but hills and the hazy line where the earth meets the sky. Then you notice it. A faint rising smudge on the horizon, too wide and too steady to be a single farmer's fire or a small group on the move. Dust, far away, thickening slowly like a bruise on the edge of the world. No one cheers, no one groans. Everyone knew it was coming. Now their eyes simply adjust from imagining to seeing. Messengers go out, then return. Officers speak in tighter groups, voices lower, movements quicker. The word spreads along the line in fragments. They're close. Camp to days march away. Scouts saw the front of their column. None of this changes your immediate tasks. There is still a meal to eat, still straps to check, still a night to get through. But the knowledge hangs in the air like the smell of the springs, constant and inescapable. That night the camp feels more awake even when men lie down. Fires are watched a bit more carefully. Armour is stacked a little closer. There is more shifting in the dark before sleep takes hold. You close your eyes with the image of that rising dust still behind them. The next day is the same, and not the same. You wake, you stand, you eat, you drill. The pass is still the pass. The wall is still the wall. But now the dust on the horizon has grown. You can see it sooner, feel it more insistently. Scouts bring more detailed reports. Cavalry screens, columns of infantry, wagons, animals, servants. It is not just an army. It is a moving world. It does not hurry because it does not have to. It knows its own weight. You hear someone say that the great king has so many men he will not even notice if thousands die in front of this narrow path. Whether that is true or not, you do not know. You do know that he will have to send some of them through this throat if he wants to reach the heart of Greece. Near midday, a small group appears at a distance too few to be the vanguard, too many to be random travellers. They ride closer, then stop well out of bowshot. Envoys. They wait. A small knot of horses and men, banners stirring in the breeze, armour glinting differently from any you have seen so far. Persian style. Foreign shapes, foreign colours. From your place behind the wall and the line, you cannot hear what they say when they are finally met by Greek representatives. You see only the postures, the gestures. A rider lifts his arm, pointing toward the pass, then back the way they came. He speaks, presumably about terms, about surrender, about the power behind him. Hands move in the air, drawing invisible outlines of threat and promise. When the Greeks answer, their movements are smaller, more compact, as if they are refusing not just the offer, but the scale of the conversation itself. No, we will not be weighed on that kind of scale. We will weigh ourselves here, in stone and blood. The envoys eventually turn their horses and ride away. No one needs to say what that means. Later, rumours of the exact words appear, twisted by speed and pride, that the Persians demanded you lay down your arms, that the answer was simple and sharp, come and take them. Whether the exchange was really that clean does not matter. The shape of it fits the place, and so the story sticks. The waiting becomes sharper now. You keep training because there is no reason to stop. You keep working on the defences because every rock settled is one more trouble for someone's boots later. But everything you do is crowded by the understanding that soon you will not be imagining the enemy in front of you. You will be feeling the push of their shields against yours. In the evening, as you sit with your back against your chosen stone, you feel the camp breathing differently. Men speak a little less about home now, and a little more about practical things. How many in the front rank? How long before we swap with the second? Where will the archers stand? Someone makes a joke and there is still laughter, but it is shorter, edged with something tight. You chew your food without really tasting it. The soup might as well be water. Your stomach knows it needs fuel. Your mind is already stepping into the pass. That night sleep comes more slowly. You lie with your cloak around you, shield a hand's breadth away, and listen. The springs murmur, the sea breathes, men shift and turn. Somewhere in the distance an owl calls once, then again. Behind all of it, if you focus hard enough, you can almost hear something else. A kind of deep, slow rustle, too steady to be wind. An army, turning over in its sleep, preparing to move. You close your eyes and picture the narrow path, the wall, the line of shields. You imagine the first contact not in bright heroic images, but in simple sensations. The shove of a shield, the jolt of a spear connecting, the smell of sweat trapped under a helmet when breathing becomes hard. Waiting has done its job. You're no longer surprised that this is coming. You're just waiting to find out exactly how it feels when the distant storm finally hits the stone. Morning comes grey and thick, the sky a flat sheet of cloud pressed low over the cliffs. For a while you can almost pretend it is just another day of waiting. Then the horns sound. Not yours, theirs. It begins as a faint distant call, too low and too long to be any shepherd's signal. It rolls along the pass like a breath through a flute, bending slightly around the rock. A second horn answers, farther away, then a third. Around you, men stand. Cloaks are shrugged off shoulders. Shields are taken up, spears are lifted from where they rested, point down in the earth. No one needs to be told what those sounds mean. You move to your place in the line. The ground is familiar now. The same shallow dip under your left foot. The same flatter patch beneath your right heel. The wall is at your back, its rough stones cool for the last time against your shoulder, before you step forward. Ahead, the pass narrows and then bends slightly, so that whatever is coming will appear almost suddenly. The order goes down the ranks, helmets on. You lower yours over your head. The world tightens. The clatter and murmur of the camp dims, replaced by a heavy, enclosed sound. Your own breathing becomes louder, echoing softly between metal and skin. The edge of the cheek guards cuts the corners of your vision, framing the pass in a narrow tunnel. You feel the familiar weight of the helmet settle on your neck and shoulders. The strap under your chin is snugged a little tighter. Sweat will loosen it soon enough. Lock shields. The line closes. Wood and bronze kiss with a series of quiet bumps and scrapes. You slide your shield in until its left edge sits firmly behind your neighbour's. You feel his shield rest against yours in turn. Behind you, the second rank steps up, filling the space, spears angled over your shoulder. The pass is not silent. The springs still hiss softly. The sea still breathes. But under those you hear something new now. A low growing roar, too deep to be wind, too alive to be thunder. The Persians are coming. At first you see only dust. It lifts at the far bend like smoke without fire, thickening, spreading along the ground. Then shapes emerge inside it. Dark lines, movement, points of brightness where light hits metal. The front ranks appear. Men in long tunics and scale armour, helmets of unfamiliar curve and crest. Their shields are smaller than yours, held more loosely. Spears and swords glint in their hands. They do not charge immediately. They advance at a steady pace, filling the width of the pass until the road seems to flow with them. Colours cloth, leather, painted shields, blur together into a single shifting band. You hear the first arrows before you see them. A faint hiss, a patter against the stones, the hollow drumbeat of shafts striking shields. Arrows rattle against the bronze circle in front of you, glance off the rim, dig into the ground near your feet. One skips up, skids along the curve of your shield, then drops, spinning, to the dirt. You feel the impacts as small, sharp shocks up your arm. None find the narrow slice of flesh behind your helmet and above your cuirass. Not yet. Hold, comes the command. Just that. No elaborate speech. Hold. The enemy closes. You watch them through the narrow slit of your vision. The details sharpen as they come closer. Faces under helmets, some set, some already strained. The way they grip their weapons. The way they keep glancing up at the walls on either side as if hoping the rock will move aside for them. They shout as they come. Some in languages you do not understand, some in broken Greek threats, promises, curses. The noise swells, bounces off the stone, tries to push its way into your chest. It meets the solid, quiet weight of the line. At the last instant before impact, everything seems to slow. You feel the ground under your sandals, the strap of your shield biting into your forearm. The wood of your spear shaft rough against your palm, the breath filling your lungs, ready to be forced out in a grunt when the collision comes. Then it comes. The front of their formation slams into your shields with a weight that is more than the sum of their bodies. The sound is enormous inside your helmet, a cracking, groaning impact made of wood, metal, bone, and breath all at once. Your shoulder drives backward a fraction. Your heel skids half a finger's width. Your ribs catch the shove and throw it down into your legs. For a heartbeat, it feels like the entire world is trying to walk through your chest. You push back. The man on your left pushes too. The man on your right. The men behind you. The line does not hold because you are strong. It holds because everyone pushes at the same time in the same direction, and the rock to either side will not move. Over the top of your shield, your spear finds a target. You do not see his whole face, just a flash of a beard, the edge of a helmet, a slice of throat above a raised shield. You thrust. The shaft jolts in your grip as it hits. You yank it back, not to admire, just to be ready again. The man in front of you slams his own shield into yours, trying to make space. Someone else's spear scrapes your helmet, sliding off the curve with a metallic shriek. To your right, there is a short, sharp cry, cut off quickly, followed by a grunt as the man behind steps into the space. You do not look. You cannot. The wall is in front of you. Everything else is sound and pressure. You hear the officers behind shouting quick, practical orders. Left, close. Front, 1 step. Second rank, forward. You feel the line adjust, teeth in a jaw, shifting slightly to get a better bite. The enemy presses again, this time with more weight. Their second rank has caught up. Bodies jam together. The pass becomes a narrow tunnel of flesh and metal, the air thick with breath and dust and the hot, sour smell of fear. Yours, theirs, all mixed together. You lose any sense of individual men in front of you. There is just weight, a mass pushing, leaning, clawing forward. Swords reach around shields, darting like snakes toward any gap. Spears jab over shoulders in both directions. Sometimes you feel a weapon strike your shield and stop. Sometimes you hear a different sound entirely, a wet, final noise followed by a sudden sag in the pressure at one point in the line. You do not think about what that means. You just move, push, brace, thrust, recover. Your world shrinks to those verbs. Time stretches. The first assault feels both endless and strangely short, like a single drawn-out shout. Your arms burn, your thighs tremble. Your hand is slick on the spear shaft. Your shoulder aches where the shield's rim has dug into it again and again. Then suddenly the pressure eases. It does not vanish, but it slackens in a way you can feel, even through the haze. Their front ranks are stumbling back, pulled away by the men behind them, or falling where they stand. The line in front of your shield thins. Hold, comes the order again, and this time it has a new layer in it. Not just stay. Do not chase. Your body wants to surge forward, to follow the retreating backs, to push them further. Training catches you by the throat and yanks you still. You keep your place. You keep your shield up. You keep your spear ready. Dust drifts between the two lines like smoke. You can hear them out there, reorganizing. Shouts, commands, the clink of armor, the angry, breathless sound of men who tasted the narrow teeth of the pass and did not like the feeling. Behind you, the second rank shifts, relieving some of the men in the front. You feel a hand tap your shoulder, a signal. You step back 2 paces, letting the man behind you slide into your slot. You do not drop your shield until you're fully out of the front line. Even then, you lower it slowly as if the air itself might suddenly attack. Your chest heaves. Sweat runs into your eyes. Your hands shake. You look down at your spear and realize there is a small smear of something dark along the point. You wipe it once on the ground without really thinking, more to clear your grip than because of what it is. The officers move along the line, checking quickly. Brace that gap. Pull him back. Healer's there. Shield strap tighten it now. Everywhere, small adjustments. A man from the third rank brought forward to a thinner spot. A unit from one of the other cities shifted slightly to cover a patch of ground where the pass widens even a little. Arrows are gathered from the dirt and snapped or set aside. You drink from a water skin that comes down the row. The water is warm and tastes faintly of leather and minerals, but it might as well be the sweetest thing you have ever touched. It pulls your mouth back from the edge of dryness. You do not get long. The horns sound again, closer this time. The roar rises. You step forward when called, back into the front line, shield lifting, spear angling. The first assault was a question. The next will be an argument. Your body knows the ground now, the feel of the enemy's weight, the rhythm of impact and push. The fear in your chest has changed shape. It is no longer a wild, scattered thing. It sits behind your ribs like a stone, heavy and quiet, while your arms, your legs, your shoulders do what they were trained to do. Somewhere behind all of this, behind the bronze and the dust and the shouted orders, is the simple understanding that this is only the beginning. The Persians have learned something about the past today, so have you. They know you will not break easily. You know that in this narrow place their numbers mean less. The day is far from over. So is the waiting, only now the waiting has teeth. The first attack leaves marks on the pass, not the kind that show in stories, not banners torn or helmets split dramatically in half. Smaller things, scratches on shield faces, a darker stain here and there on the ground, a spear shaft cracked where it took one impact too many. You feel those marks inside your body too. Your shoulders are heavier, your legs buzz faintly, your throat is raw from breathing hot air inside the helmet. But you're still standing. So is the line. The Persians pull back just far enough to breathe and reorganize. Away from the narrowest part of the pass, the space widens slightly, and there they gather in dense clumps, officers' voices cutting through the rumble. You cannot hear the words, but you can see the shapes of the commands. Point. Circle with a hand. Chop downward. Send these men, not those. Again. Behind you, the rotation continues. Men who took the worst of the first wave are pulled back to the second or third rank, their places filled by others whose arms have rested for a few precious minutes. It is like changing stones in a wall without letting the wall fall. You stand in the second rank now, close enough to see, close enough to move forward when needed, far enough to get a few deeper breaths. Someone behind you speaks between swallows of water. "They didn't expect that," he says. "They will now," another answers. "There is no illusion among you. The first assault was only a test from their side. Passing the test just earns you a harder one." The horns sound again, sharper this time. You straighten without thinking. From the Persian side, a new unit moves forward. You can tell at a glance that these are not the same men who charged first. Their armour is finer, scale coats that catch the light more cleanly, shields with more careful patterns, helmets with taller crests. These are the ones people have talked about in whispers and hard tones. The immortals, the elite of the great king. They advance in better order, less shouting, more discipline. Their line is tighter, their steps more even. This is a group used to being the answer to problems. Your officers see it too. You hear the word ripple down the ranks. Elite. Immortals. Here they come. Leonidas moves along behind the line, not to lecture, not to inspire, just to make sure everyone has heard what he has already made peace with. "Same pass," he says at one point. Voice low but clear enough to carry through the helmet metal. "Same width. They still have to come through here." The immortals draw closer. They do not rush. They move like a dark, heavy wave, shields overlapping more than the first groups did, spears raised at a sharper angle. Their faces are harder to see under their helmets, but their posture speaks enough. They're used to men moving out of their way. They reach the range of arrows and loose their own, a cloud that darkens the air for a breath. The shafts hiss past, clatter off stone, drum against the bronze curve of your shields. You raise your shield automatically, head ducked, feeling each impact as a small personal knock. Then the arrows stop. They do not waste time. They come in. From the front it must look like two jaws closing on the same bite. From where you stand, second rank, all you see is your own line bracing and theirs approaching, the space between you shrinking. Front rank ready. Second, hold. You grip your spear, angle the point over the shoulder of the man in front of you. The air in your helmet feels thicker, as if the enemy's approach has weight you can breathe in. The collision is harder this time. The immortals hit with a confidence the first wave lacked. The impact shudders through your comrade's shield into your own, into your arm, into your spine. For a moment your teeth rattle with it. But the ground does not change. The width of the pass does not change. Your training does not change. The front rank bends but does not break. You feel them absorb the first charge, taking the shock in their legs and backs, then pushing it downward and outward like water hitting rock. Over their shoulders your spears strike. There is no finesse to it now. You thrust where there is space, a gap between shield and helmet, a thigh that steps a fraction too far forward, a hand that reaches too high. The immortals are good. They block many of the thrusts. Some spear points glance off metal, leaving only scratches. Their own weapons probe for openings, sliding along shield rims, stabbing over the top in quick, practiced motions. But they are still trapped in the same simple math. Too many men in too little room. Men in their second and third ranks cannot reach you properly. Their spears tangle with those of their own front line. Their shields press into each other's backs. The ones who fall trip those behind them. In theory, 10 men against 1 is an advantage. In a space like this, it is a crowding. They try to use their weight. The push becomes constant. Shields grind against shields. Your front rank leans back into you for support and you lean forward into them, part of a single straining structure. You hear the immortals' voices up close now. They are not gods. Their breath comes fast, harsh. They grunt when they are hit. They curse when their footing slips on loose stones or on something wet underfoot. From behind you, an officer shouts, "Half step forward!" You move as one. The line surges just a little, enough to disrupt the rhythm of the enemy's push. For a heartbeat, you feel them give way. It is not a dramatic collapse, not a grand break, just a small, crucial hesitation. Your spears take that moment and drive into it. One man in front of you, with a beard braided in a style you have never seen before, raises his shield too high, expecting another push. Your point finds the space beneath his arm. The shock runs up the shaft. He gasps, the sound dull under his helmet, and disappears backward, dragged or falling, you cannot tell. Someone else immediately fills his place. The wave keeps coming. Time smears. You lose track of how long you have been standing there. Your world is narrowed to the circle of bronze on your arm, the weight of the spear in your hand, the pressure of the bodies on either side of you, and the constant grinding effort to hold, to push, to stab, to not fall. Heat builds under the armor. You feel sweat gathering along your spine, trickling down your ribs. Your hands are slippery on the wood, and you have to adjust your grip by tiny amounts whenever you can afford it, or risk losing the weapon entirely. And still, the immortals do not break through. They do not fall back as quickly as the first wave. Their discipline holds them together longer, but the past does not give them room to use their full strength. Each time they try to press harder, they trip on their own numbers. At last, something in their line changes. You feel it before you see it. A small shift in weight, a slight loss of pressure, a hesitation in the rhythm of their push. One man steps back instead of forward, then another. Orders are shouted from somewhere behind them. Urgent now, cutting through the roar. Hold, comes your own order, sharp as a spear point. You do not lunge, you do not chase. You keep your shield up, your spear ready, while the immortal's front rank begins to withdraw in small shuffling movements, dragged back by the men behind them. For a moment, the space between the lines is a tangle of bodies, some still fighting, some trying to escape, some no longer moving at all. Then the distance widens by a few paces, and the pass breathes. Your lungs pull in air that tastes of dust, sweat, and the faint tang of the hot springs. It might be the best breath you have taken in your life. You hear something like disbelief ripple through the Allied lines behind you. We held them. We held the immortals. No one shouts in triumph. Your throat is too raw to waste on victory cries, and besides, everyone here knows one hard truth. This was only one attempt. You step back again when ordered, letting another portion of the line take the front for a while. Your legs feel strange without the constant forward push locking them in place. You lower your shield slightly, just enough to see over it more clearly. Out beyond the narrowest point, the immortals are pulling themselves back into order. Their losses are real, visible even through the distance and dust. Gaps in their ranks, men limping, a few shapes carried, not walking. But their banners are still up, they are not finished. Behind them, farther back along the pass, the rest of the Persian army waits, columns like dark rivers. More men than you can easily count standing in reserves that will never all fit into this narrow gap at once. You drink when the water skin comes, you adjust your helmet, you flex your fingers around the spear shaft. The pass has proven itself. So have you. In this tight stone throat, the great king's best have learned that their name does not make the space wider, that their armor does not make the ground flatter, that their reputation does not push shields aside. They will come again, with different troops in different patterns at different times of day. But now they know that in this place, facing men who have trained for a single task since childhood, even the immortals can be stopped. The thought does not make you relax. It makes you settle more firmly into yourself. You're tired, your arms ache, your throat burns, and yet, somewhere under all of that, there is a small, cold, steady line of understanding. As long as the ground stays narrow, as long as the shields stay locked, waves can break on you, even if those waves call themselves deathless. When the immortals finally pull back and the horns on their side fall silent, the pass feels wider for the first time all day, not because the stone has moved, because the pressure has. Orders move down the line like slower echoes now. Rotate, pull back this file, bring that unit forward. You take your turn, stepping out of the front, shield still raised until there is a clear body between you and the open space. Only then do you lower it, just a little, just enough to ease the bite in your shoulder. Your arms feel longer than they used to, as if someone has quietly added weight to your bones. Your legs are steady, but the muscles in your thighs vibrate with a thin, stubborn fatigue. You breathe in short, careful pulls, as if your lungs need permission to expand again after hours spent compressed under metal and effort. The pass in front of you is no longer just rock and dust. It is a pattern of marks. Here, a shallow groove where a shield edge scraped over and over. There, a darker patch where someone fell and was dragged aside. Broken spearheads lie scattered like teeth. Bodies are being moved now quickly without ceremony. Some limp, supported by two others. Some do not move at all. The wounded are pulled back behind the wall, out of the main throat of the pass. Healers and those with any useful experience kneel beside them. Leather bags are opened, cloths unrolled, water poured. The smells change. Dust, sweat, hot springs, sea. Now the copper tang of blood threads through them all. You do not go to the wounded. Not because you do not care, because that is not your role yet. Your job for the moment is simpler. Stay on your feet, drink when told, eat if you can, be ready when the next order comes. A water skin appears in front of you, passed hand to hand along the line. You take it, drink, feel the warm, slightly stale liquid spread through your mouth and throat like something far finer. You pass it on without needing to look, trusting that a hand will be there to take it. Someone near you coughs, spits dust into the ground. Someone else laughs once, short and rough. That was their best, a voice says. Maybe, another answers, or maybe just their best that can fit through there. You look out into the wider space beyond the narrow throat. The Persian army is still there, a dark mass of men and movement stretching back farther than your eyes can comfortably follow. Even after the losses they have taken at the pass, the whole structure of that army has not changed. It is like staring at the side of a mountain and knowing that some stones have been knocked loose, but the mountain remains. But mountains cannot walk through gaps. Men can. And every group of men that tries will leave something in the dirt. As the day leans downward, the attacks lessen. Not completely. There are still pushes, smaller probes, archers testing your patience. But the great waves have passed for now. Even an empire has to breathe in between efforts. The light in the pass changes. Morning's harsh brightness becomes afternoon's heavier glow, then softens into evening. The cliffs throw long shadows that reach almost from one side to the other. The steam from the springs is easier to see, thin white threads rising and thinning into the cooling air. When the order finally comes to stand down for the day, it is not a release from duty. It is just a change in kind. You step back with your unit, away from the narrowest point, to the ground where you have been sleeping. Some men simply drop where they stop, sitting hard on the earth, shields slipping from their arms like they weigh twice what they did in the morning. Others move more slowly, as if they are afraid that if they sit down too fast they will not be able to stand again. You lower your own shield carefully, propping it beside you. Your arm feels strangely light without the weight. You flex your fingers and feel the ache bloom all through your forearm, a deep, throbbing tiredness. The joints in your hands complain as you open and close them. The skin at the base of your thumb is beginning to blister, where the spear shaft rubbed all day. Your helmet comes off with a soft, wet sound. Sweat has glued it to your brow. When you lift it clear, the air on your face feels almost cold, even though the evening is still warm. You run one hand over your hair, flattened and damp, then across your eyes to wipe away the salt and dust. Without the helmet, the world is suddenly loud in a different way. Not the muffled thunder inside the bronze, but the open mix of voices clatter, low groans, water pouring, fires starting. A camp at work, a camp that has survived its first full day of being where the storm hits. Food comes in rough pieces, bread torn by hand, strips of meat. A thin soup that tastes mostly of hot water and herbs. You eat without tasting much of it, aware only that your jaw's moving, that your stomach is taking what it is given and making no complaints. Around you, men talk in low tones. How many did they send? Enough to cover the ground in front of us. How many did we lose? Fewer than them. That won't comfort the ones who aren't here to hear it. There is no count yet. It will come later when someone with the responsibility and the stomach for it walks along the rows and tallies names against faces, faces against absence. For now, people measure the day in impressions. Less than I feared. More than I wanted. We're still here. Someone near you pulls off his sandal and grimaces at the sight of his own foot. The skin rubbed raw on the heel, a blister burst and darkened. He cleans it with water, hissing between his teeth, then wraps it with a strip of cloth torn from an old tunic. That, he says, hurts more than being hit with a shield. "You'll wish for that shield tomorrow when you stand on it," someone else replies. The humour is dry and not particularly kind, but that is not what it is for. It is a way of saying, you are still alive enough to complain about your foot. A little distance away the wounded gather, or are gathered. Some sit, backs against the wall or against their stacked shields, bandages showing through gaps in their armour. Others lie flat on cloaks or bare earth, eyes closed, faces tight. A few talk quietly, voices hoarse, trading fragments of what they remember from the wall of noise that was the day. You see one man you recognise from the line, his arm bound tightly from elbow to shoulder, the bandage already stained through. He catches your eye and raises his free hand in a small, almost casual greeting. You raise your chin back. There is nothing useful to say. He will not fight tomorrow. You will. The sun drops lower. The colour of the cliff shifts from grey to a darker red-brown, then to almost black. Fires spark into being one by one, points of orange along the base of the stone, around which men cluster in loose circles. The sea becomes a long, dull silver band, the line between water and sky blurring. You find your usual stone and sit with your back against it, shield grounded beside you, spear lying within reach. Your body begins to stiffen now that it has permission to stop. The bruises you did not feel before start to announce themselves, on your shoulder where shield struck, on your side where something glanced off your cuirass hard enough to leave a mark, on your thigh where a knee or a foot or a piece of broken wood crashed into you in the crush. None of it is serious. All of it is loud in the quiet. Someone passes a small cup along the circle. Wine, watered, thin but real. When it reaches you, you take it, sip, feel the faint burn slide down your throat, and spread a shallow warmth in your chest. You hand it on. This is not a night to drink deeply. Tomorrow you will need every clear edge your mind has. Conversations circle slowly outward from the day's fight. They thought we'd break on the first push. They thought numbers would do what the ground won't let them do. The immortals bleed like anyone else. There is no boasting. To boast would be to pretend that today was easy. It wasn't. The truth in the words is simpler. You have seen what the Empire can send first, and you are still drawing breath. That matters more than any sharp-edged phrase. You tilt your head back and look up. The sky's clearer than the previous night, the clouds broken apart and drifting. Stars prick through in clusters and single points, some bright, some faint. You pick out the familiar shapes almost automatically, not because you care about their stories, but because human eyes always look for patterns. Those same stars look down on Marathon, on 1,000 other fights you were not there to see. They will look down on whatever happens here. They will not move. The thought is oddly calming. Somewhere not far away, Leonidas is sitting too, cloak around his shoulders, armour loosened, eyes probably turned toward the same strip of sky or the dark outline of the pass. His burdens did not get lighter today. If anything, they grew heavier, packed with the fresh weight of dead and wounded. But he too is still here. Tomorrow he will stand behind the line again, quiet and solid, and you will feel his presence like another stone in the wall. As the fires burn lower and the voices thin out, the camp settles into a slower rhythm. Sentries take their places, posted where they can watch both the pass and the higher paths. The hot springs keep whispering, their steam pale in the dim light. The sea breathes its tired, endless breath. You wrap your cloak around you and ease yourself down onto the ground. Every movement draws a small complaint from somewhere in your body, but no single pain is strong enough to outweigh the simple need to lie flat. You place your shield so your hand can find it by instinct in the dark. Your eyes close. Inside your lids, the day replays itself in fragments, not as shining heroics, but as flashes of sensation. The thud of the first impact, the weight of men leaning into your shield, the jolt of your spear hitting something that gave way, the brief blinding sting of sweat in your eyes that you could not wipe away. These memories drift, rise, sink again, like pieces of wreckage on a slow tide. They do not drag you under, they simply pass. Sleep comes gradually, not as a clean break. Your mind loosens its grip on the exact shape of the pass, on the count of the ranks, on the position of every stone. The sounds of the camp blur into one low hum. Your breath settles into a steady pace, matched by hundreds of other breaths around you. Tomorrow, the Persians will try again. You know it as surely as you know that the sea will still be there when you wake. For now, there is only this narrow piece of night, this worn patch of earth, this temporary peace earned by a day of pushing back against something vast. You let go, inch by inch, and slide down into sleep. The weight of the shield gone from your arm but still present somewhere in your bones, reminding your body that when the light returns you will lift it again. Dawn comes thin and pale, the kind of light that seems to hesitate before it touches the ground. You open your eyes to the same strip of sky, the same dark line of cliffs, the same low murmur of the springs. For a heartbeat, you could almost believe yesterday was a long, vivid dream. Then you move your arm, and the ache that answers tells you exactly how real it was. The camp stirs more slowly this morning. No one oversleeps. Habit makes sure of that. But men move with a different kind of care. Every small action is measured, rolling from back to side, pushing up onto your hands, getting to your feet. Your muscles complain at each command and then obey anyway. You stand and feel the stiffness along your spine, across your shoulders, in your calves. It is not new pain now. It is an old companion sitting in a new place. You eat because you must. Bread, a little meat, water that tastes faintly of the springs. The food is plain, but your body takes it in greedily. You can feel it slotting into the empty spaces left by the day before, a quiet repair work that will not finish, but will help. There is no question of not taking your place in the line. The past still exists, so do you. You strap on your armor, lift your shield, pick up your spear. The familiar weight settles onto you like a heavy cloak you know exactly how to wear. When you move toward the narrow throat, the ground feels different under your feet. Not because it has changed, but because now it carries the memory of where you stood yesterday, where you pushed, where you almost slipped and did not. The line forms again. Shields touch, spears rise, helmets lower. The air inside the bronze feels less shocking now. You know how it will warm, how your breath will sound in your own ears when the world beyond the slit begins to shout. The Persians do not charge at once this time. They begin with arrows. You hear the first flights before you see them, a layered hiss cutting the air. Dark shapes arc up above the line of the pass and come down in a scattered rain. "Shields up," someone calls, though most of you already have them raised. Shafts drum against bronze and wood. Some rattle harmlessly away. Others wedge in the upper curve of shields, shivering with the last of their energy. A few find gaps, bare thighs, unguarded arms, the narrow band of skin between helmet and cuirass, when someone tilts his head too far at the wrong moment. Cries sound along the line, short, sharp, none last long. A man wounded badly enough to fall is dragged back, his place filled before the shield beside him can feel empty. The arrow storm comes in waves, not a single overwhelming cloud, but repeated flurries, as if the Persians are testing how long they can make you hide behind your shields. Your arm begins to ache in a new way from holding the shield at a higher angle. Muscles along your ribs and neck tighten with the strain. You breathe shallower, knowing that as long as the arrows fall, lowering your guard even a little is an invitation. Between volleys, the enemy shifts its approach. Light troops come first, men with smaller shields and shorter spears, more lightly armoured, sent to harass rather than break you. They rush forward, throw javelins, dart back, trying to draw you out of formation, to provoke some impulsive lunge. They shout insults, wave their weapons, beckon with free hands as if daring you to chase them into the wider space where more of their comrades wait. You do not move. Your officers do not need to remind you. Years of training speak louder than any voice. The light troops come closer, step just within range, fling their missiles, then scamper back again, laughing or snarling, depending on how brave they feel. Some are quick, some are not quick enough. Javelins clatter off shields, bite into the ground, occasionally strike flesh. A few find shoulders or legs. Each time the line ripples, then hardens. A wounded man steps back with help, another steps up. The wall remains. Occasionally, when the timing is right, your own front rank answers, not by charging, but by letting a few spears flick out in quick, precise thrusts. A man who misjudges the distance, who lingers half a heartbeat too long within reach, pays for it. He falls, his retreat broken into something messy and slow, and the others pull him out of range if they can. After a time, the Persians change the pattern again. Heavier infantry moves in, but not in the same great push as yesterday. Smaller groups this time, attacks sent in from slightly different angles, trying to feel along the line for a weak place, a thin patch where the shields do not quite close. Sometimes they press toward the centre, sometimes they try the edges near the slopes and the sea. They come in shouting, their formations looser than before, perhaps hoping that movement and unpredictability will do what raw momentum did not. The past denies them the space to be clever. They still have to funnel into the narrow ground. They still have to bend themselves to the shape of the stone. Their feints and angled approaches flatten against reality. Wherever they strike, they find the same answer. A wall reaching from rock to rock. You feel the day stretching out not as one great battle, but as many smaller ones, stitched together by brief spells of hovering tension. Assault, pressure, repulse, arrows again, light troops again, another push at a different spot. Each time you brace, each time you push back, each time your world shrinks to the width of your shield, the length of your spear, and the few breaths between one impact and the next. At some point they try the shore. You do not see the first attempt directly, but you hear about it as the information moves down the line. The Persians sent men scrambling along the narrow edge where rock meets water, hoping to slip around and hit you from the side. The sea does not cooperate. The stones are slick, the footing treacherous. Archers and slingers posted on the higher ground see them clearly and send their own missiles down into the struggling men below. Some fall into the water, armour dragging them under. Others scramble back the way they came, having learned how narrow and unforgiving that path really is. Each failed attempt adds another small layer of understanding to both sides. They learn where the stone will not let them pass. You learn where they are willing to risk men to try anyway. The day wears on. The light in the pass changes from flat grey to a harder white, then softens again as the sun begins its slow drop. Your arms shake more now when you lift the shield. Your spear feels heavier each time you set it, thrust, draw it back. Your breathing, when you have a moment to notice it, comes in deep, dragging pulls. And yet, under the exhaustion, there is a strange steadiness. You know the ground. You know the man on your left, the man on your right. You know how the enemy feels when he hits your shield, how his weapons sound against bronze, how his footing shifts when he steps onto that one patch of loose gravel near your toes. Fear is still there, a tightness under your ribs. But it is not wild anymore. It is something you wear, like the weight of the helmet, like the strap of the shield. It is part of the kit. By late afternoon, the attacks begin to thin. Not because the Persians are done, but because they too are made of bodies with limits. Even an enormous army needs to regroup, replace formations, speak new commands. You hold the line until the order comes to step back. When it finally reaches you, it feels almost unexpected. You withdraw in sections, moving with care, never turning your back, always leaving enough shields facing the open space that no sudden rush can catch you unprepared. When the last of you are clear of the narrowest point, the pass seems to exhale. The ground you leave behind is marked more heavily now, more broken spears, more fallen arrows, more dark patches that will not fade while this heat lasts. You return to the campground, each step a tug of war between the stiffness in your muscles and the simple relief of not having to brace against an enemy's weight for a while. Helmet off, shield down, spear grounded. The evening routine begins again. Food, water, checking bandages, counting who still sits where they sat yesterday. This time, when you lower yourself onto the earth with your back against the rock, the tiredness is not layered on top of fresh shock. It is deeper, more settled. Your body knows what this place demands now. So does your mind. Around you, the talk is quieter. They tried the shore. They tried the centre, the edges, the arrows, the light troops. And tomorrow? Tomorrow they'll try something else. You look toward the inland side of the pass where the Persian camp lies out of sight beyond bends and hills. You can almost feel the movement out there, like an animal shifting its weight before another charge. The sky above the cliffs darkens slowly. The springs send up their thin threads of steam. The sea keeps breathing at the edge of hearing. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders, lay your shield where your hand can find it, and let your eyes close. Sleep comes, heavy but not empty. It is full of the pass's narrow throat, its rough wall, its shifting light. Full of shields meeting, spears striking, arrows rattling. But those images do not drag you awake. They move through your mind like distant echoes, softened by distance and by the simple fact that you have met them twice now and are still here. Tomorrow the Persians will come again, changed by what they have learned. Night comes down harder on the third day. The sky's clearer than before, the stars sharp and cold above the black edges of the cliffs. The air feels thinner, as if the wind itself is holding its breath. The fires along the Greek camp burn lower, not because there is less wood, but because no one wants the light to travel too far. You sit with your back against your usual rock, cloak around your shoulders, shield at your side. Your hands are still stained faintly where bronze rubbed and sweat dried. The ache in your muscles has settled into something steady. Not pleasant, not unbearable, just there. The day behind you feels longer than the ones before it. More attacks, more arrows, more shifts along the line as the Persians tried one angle after another. Each time you held. The wall of shields did its work. The pass kept its promise. Food moves through the camp in simple shapes: bread, olives, meat. You chew slowly, not because you're savouring anything, but because chewing is one of the few tasks left that feels small and manageable. Around you, voices are low. They will have to try something different, someone says. They are not fools. Different how, another asks. The stone will not move for them. There are always other ways, a third voice says quietly. Stone has more than one side. You know what he means. The path above. Ever since you climbed that narrow trail to scout it, the knowledge has been sitting somewhere in the back of your mind. The pass is not just a single road pinned between mountain and sea. It is a knot of paths. The main one is in front of you. The others twist along the slopes, thin and dangerous, but real. Phocian men guard that route now, posted there to watch, to warn, to stop anyone who tries to slip around behind you. You trust them. You have to. You cannot stand in two places at once. Still, when you lie back and look up at the jagged line of rock against the sky, you cannot help imagining what might move up there in the dark. Feet, careful on loose stones, hands gripping branches and roots, eyes watching the same stars from a different angle. A messenger comes from Leonidas's part of the camp. There is a brief murmur, then he moves on. Not long after, your commander speaks to your group. The king has sent word to the other leaders, he says. They know the cost now. They have seen what this place demands. He pauses. Some may leave before dawn. They have their own cities to protect. The words are simple. The meaning behind them is not. Not everyone will stay. You think of the allies, men from other towns and regions who came to stand in the pass beside Spartans. Some have already lost more than they expected. Some return to their lines today with fewer shields than they brought in the morning. Who leaves? Someone asks. That is for their leaders to decide, your commander answers. Our place does not change. You already knew that before he said it. Spartans do not abandon positions like this. Not with a king present. Not after 3 days of holding. Still, the knowledge presses on your ribs. Some will walk away from Thermopylae. You will not. Later, as the camp settles, you catch glimpses of movement in the dark. Small groups talking in tighter circles. The glow of a fire snuffed out completely instead of left to die slowly. Once, far across the shared ground, you think you see a unit forming up quietly, moving away from the pass deeper into the night. You do not resent them. You do not envy them either. Their cities lie elsewhere. So do their laws. Yours lie here, pinned between rock and sea. You lie down eventually, cloak pulled close, shield where your hand can find it in a blink. Sleep feels farther away than on previous nights. Your body is exhausted, but your mind keeps walking along the ridge above the pass, tracing the path you climbed before, imagining feet that are not yours on that same narrow line. At some point, you drift off anyway. Fatigue does not ask for permission. You do not know how long you sleep before the change wakes you. It is not a shout, not the clash of weapons, not even the horn. It is more subtle than that, a shift in the way men breathe around you, a tremor in the night sounds, too small to grasp at first. Then someone is standing over you, hand on your shoulder, shaking you once firmly. Up, he says, news from the heights. You're awake instantly. The stiffness in your limbs protests as you sit up, but it is drowned in a colder feeling rising in your chest. You see it on other faces too, in the glow of low fires and starlight. Men pushing themselves upright, reaching automatically for shields and spears, eyes searching for officers. Words move through the camp in fragments thin and sharp. Path! Scouts! Persians! Above. You find your commander. His jaw is tight, his voice controlled. The Phocian watch on the mountain sent word, he says. Persians have been seen on the upper path, a large force. The worst part is that you're not surprised. You have been waiting for this possibility like you wait for a bruise to show where you know you have been struck. How many? Someone asks. Enough, comes the answer. More than a raiding party. There are more details arriving in pieces. A man local, Greek, who led the Persians to the path seeking reward. A name passes from mouth to mouth. Ephialtes. It fits in the throat like a stone. You picture him without meaning to. Some man from these hills, who knew the tracks and shortcuts, who decided that the weight of the great king's gold outweighed that of his own land under his feet. You wonder if he sleeps well tonight, or if the sound of his own steps betraying his home echoes in his ears. But that is his story. Yours is here. Leonidas calls a council of commanders. They stand in a tight ring near one of the larger fires, faces lit from below, eyes shadowed. Voices rise and fall. You cannot hear every word, but you know the shape of the choice they face. Enemy in front, enemy about to appear behind. A narrow pass that will soon be a trap instead of a wall. Some argue to withdraw while there is still a chance, to fall back to a new position, closer to central Greece, to live to fight again with a wider army. Spartans do not speak much in that argument. Their position is already set. Eventually the council breaks. Leaders go back to their men. Orders begin to flow. Some allies are told to leave, to carry the news home, to prepare their cities, to fight another day in another place. The Thespians choose to stay. Others do not. The Thebans remain in a half-shadowed space between loyalty and compulsion. Your commander returns to you. His face is calm in a way that feels heavier than anger. The king has spoken, he says. We stay. The pass will be held as long as it can be held. He does not add what everyone is already thinking. There will be no withdrawal for you, no second road, no escape. A strange quiet settles after that. Not panic, not resignation. Something in between. You check your armor one more time, fingers moving over straps and buckles that you could probably fasten in your sleep. You run a hand along the edge of your shield, feeling the nicks and gouges from the last days. You touch the spearhead, not to admire it, but to make sure it is still seated firmly in the wood. Some men pray, lips moving silently. Some sit with their heads bowed, eyes open, staring at nothing in particular. A few talk in low tones, not about home, but about simple, practical things. When they come from behind, how long do we have before they close the trap? Long enough to break a few more in front. Then we break them. You think of your father's face in the doorway, the lines at the corners of his eyes, of your mother's hand on your arm that last morning, of your son, small and warm, asleep somewhere far from here, unaware that his father is standing between more than two cliffs now, between two halves of an army. The night thins, the stars begin to fade. A pale edge of light creeps up behind the mountains. You move with the others toward the pass for what you understand may be the last time. The ground remembers your steps. The wall, rebuilt and rebuilt, stands squat and stubborn. The narrow throat of Thermopylae waits. Behind your right shoulder, the upper path curves along the slope, vanishing into rock and shadow. Somewhere up there, Persian feet are already moving. In front of you, the main body of the great king's army prepares to advance again, unaware or fully aware that soon their brothers will be pressing from the other side. You take your place in the line, shield to shield, shoulder to shoulder. The pass has not changed, the sky has. You have. Waiting is over. Now there is only standing for as long as the stone and your own legs will let you. Dawn does not bother with colours today. It comes as a flat, pale light, washing the cliffs and the pass in a thin grey that makes everything look already half-remembered. You stand in formation, shield on your arm, spear in your hand, feeling the weight of the morning settle onto your shoulders along with the bronze. The air is cool enough that your breath fogs slightly as you exhale inside the helmet. It will not stay cool for long. The camp behind you is different now. Fewer fires, fewer voices. Some allies have gone, as ordered or as advised. Others have stayed by choice. The Thespians are still there, a cluster of men who knew what it meant when they decided to remain and did not flinch. You see them lining up near you, their shields narrower, their armour varied, their faces set. They do not have your training, but they have made the same simple trade. Today, instead of someday. Leonidas moves to the front of the gathered force. Not just the 300 now, but those who have chosen or been chosen to stand with them. He is bareheaded for the moment, cloak around his shoulders, armour already cinched tight. The pass is quiet. The horns on the Persian side have not yet sounded. The only noises are the faint hiss of the hot springs, the soft push and pull of the sea, the creak of leather as men shift their weight. He waits until the last footsteps fade and the last man has taken his place. Then he speaks. His voice is not loud, but the cliffs carry it, bouncing it back in a way that makes it feel larger. Men of Sparta, he begins, and then, after a breath, and men of Greece. He looks along the line as he talks, not at the sky, not at some imagined audience in the future, but at you, at the Thespians, at the Thebans, shifting uneasily near the rear, at every face that will have to accept what the day brings. You have seen what this place can do, he says. You have seen how little room the great king has to be a god when the stone decides otherwise. There is the faintest ripple of a grim smile along the line. It passes quickly. Today, he continues, they will come at us from both sides. You know that. I know that. The gods know that. There is no road behind us that is still truly ours. He does not soften it. There is nothing to soften. I have sent men away, he says. I have told them to carry the message home, to prepare their cities, their families, their walls. That was my duty. He pauses. You who remain here now are not here by accident. The Thespians straighten almost imperceptibly. A few of your own comrades shift their weight, as if standing a fraction taller. You are here because you chose to be, or because your laws chose for you long before you were born. You are here because this pass must cost the great king more than he wishes to pay, not just in men, but in time, in fear, in the shape of the story he will tell about this land. He glances toward the inland side of the pass where, somewhere beyond the folds of rock, the main body of the Persian army is preparing again. Then toward the upper path, invisible from here, but very present in every mind. They will say in years to come that we died here, he says simply. That is not the part that matters. What matters is what we buy with that death. He looks back at you. Every man we break in this throat is one less walking into your homes. Every hour we stand here is an hour your sons and daughters might live elsewhere under their own sky, and not under a foreign whip. There is no roar in answer, no clashing of weapons. The response is quieter, shoulders firming, hands tightening on spear shafts, chins lifting just a little. If any of you wishes to leave still, he says, and you feel the air tighten. If any man believes his duty lies somewhere else, go now. There will be no shame in it, not from me. No one moves. You do not know if that is courage, stubbornness, or simply the understanding that this choice has already taken root too deeply to be pulled up. Leonidas nods once, as if confirming something to himself more than to you. Then we stay, he says. We stand. We make the great king remember that in this narrow place his world has edges. He does not offer promises of rescue. He does not say the gods will intervene. He simply lays the day out in front of you like a path. You know your positions, he finishes. You know the ground. Trust them. Trust the man on your left and the man on your right. Let the Persians spend themselves on your shields. They have many bodies. They have only one road. He steps back. The brief gathering breaks apart into smaller movements. Officers walk along the line, confirming the arrangement. Spartans at the core, Thespians interwoven, not left as a separate, fragile edge, but bound into the same wall. Thebans held in the rear, where their loyalty can be watched and their spears still used if they choose to point them the right way. You take your assigned place in the front ranks again. The ground under your sandals feels almost familiar now, like the hard training yards back in Sparta, except that the stakes have been pushed far beyond bruises and shouted reprimands. A comrade on your left bumps his shield lightly against yours, a small wordless gesture. You glance at him. His mouth twists into something that is almost a smile. Seems we get to find out, he says quietly. Find out what, you ask. What the Agauge was really for, he answers. All of it. The cold, the hunger, the drills. Not for some parade, for this. You exhale slowly, feeling the truth of it settle into place. All the mornings when your body hurt and you rose anyway. All the days when you were knocked down and told to stand back up. All the times you were taught that your life was less important than the line holding. It all points here. A horn sounds from the Greek side, short and sharp. Final instructions. Archers to their positions on the slopes, slingers ready with stones, reserves placed just far enough back to step in when the front rank thins, close enough to close the gap before it becomes a wound. You pull your helmet on. The world narrows again to a strip of pass framed by bronze. You hear the Persians before you see them, drums deep and steady, horns drawn out and harsh, a rumble like approaching weather. Your heart beats in time with it for a moment, then finds its own pace, slower, firmer. Lock shields, the order comes. The line closes, wood and bronze touch, overlap. You feel the man on your left lean fractionally into you. You lean into him. The weight of the shield strap digs into your forearm in the same old way. You're aware, in a distant part of your mind, that there is almost no path left behind you now. If you turned and tried to walk away, you would find only rock, water, and eventually an enemy coming from the other side. The pass has become a bowl. You're the stone in its centre. In front of you, dust begins to rise again. The outlines of the first advancing ranks appear, swelling out of the haze. More men than yesterday in the first wave, their banners twitching, their armour catching the pale light. Somewhere up on the mountain path other feet are moving too. You cannot see them. You can only feel the shape of their approach in the way orders are passed along behind you, in the way officers glance back even as they face forward. You breathe in, you breathe out. The handle of the spear is rough and solid in your hand. The rim of the shield presses into your side. The strap cuts your skin a little where yesterday's friction already raised raw patches. You are afraid. Of course you are. But the fear has nowhere to go now except forward, into your arms, into your legs, into the push you will give when the first impact comes. The drums on the Persian side pound louder. The horns wail again. Leonidas' last words still sit in the space between your ribs, quiet and heavy. We stay. We stand. The great king's army begins its final approach to the narrow throat of Thermopylae, and you, one man among 300 and a handful more, plant your feet and prepare to meet it, knowing that this time the only direction left after hold is fall, and that how you make that fall will be the last thing you get to shape in this life. The ground is already under your feet when the Persians begin to move. The drums on their side change. The beat is slower, heavier, like a heart that has decided on something final. Horns answer, long and harsh, the sound sliding between the cliffs and washing toward you in steady waves. You do not need anyone to tell you what it means. Today they are not testing. Today they are spending. Your hand tightens on the spear. The shield strap bites into your arm in the same old way. You feel the man on your left lean the smallest amount into you. On your right, a thespian breathes out through his nose, a slow, controlled breath. No one talks now. There are no jokes left that fit in this space. Out beyond the narrowest point of the pass, the dust rises again, thicker than before. Through it you see the front of the Persian army swell and darken, not in thin lines, not in probing patterns, but in a solid mass. They come with noise, shouts in many tongues, metal clashing against metal, drums beating like fists on a door. Arrows come first, as they always do. The sky darkens for a heartbeat with black shapes, then the rattle of shafts on shields begins. You lift your shield, feel each impact as a small kick through bronze and wood. Some arrows strike the wall behind, some the ground at your feet. A few find flesh among the men who cannot cover every inch of themselves with metal. Cries sound here and there along the line, brief and swallowed quickly. The gaps close almost on their own. You have done this for days now. The movements are worn into your body like grooves in stone. Then the arrows thin. You hear what replaces them. Feet. Hundreds and thousands of feet. The dull roll of weight moving toward the throat. The front of their formation appears through the dust. Shield after shield, rank after rank, men pressing into the narrow ground, filling every scrap of space. Behind them more bodies, more spears, more faces you will never learn. You draw one breath. You pull it deep. You let it go. The first rank of Persians hits your shields. The impact is worse than any before. All the pushes of the last days have taught them something. They drive with more weight, more bodies stacked behind the first wave, more fury poured into the same narrow slice of earth. Your shield slams back into your chest. Your shoulder screams. Your heels scrape and dig for purchase. For one terrible instant you feel your whole body slide a fraction, as if the ground itself is trying to move under you. Then the man behind you plants his shield into your back and shoves. You stop sliding. You shove back. Everything narrows. You do not see an army anymore. You see only the strip of space above your shield rim and below the edge of your helmet. A face contorted with effort. A blade reaching for you. A spear tip darting. You thrust, block, brace, thrust again. There is no clean rhythm now. It is not drill. It is not even battle as you imagined it. It is weight and pressure and the constant scream of muscle against strain. It is the sound of men grunting in each other's faces, breath hot and sour in the close air, armor scraping, feet slipping on ground that is no longer just dust and stone. Somewhere to your right, the line lurches and then steadies again. You hear an officer shout for that side to close. To your left, a Spartan curses as a sword bites into his thigh. He does not fall. He simply sets his jaw, adjusts his weight, and keeps his shield up. You do not know how long the first rush lasts. Time dissolves. Your world is a series of moments. A spear that glances from your shield. A sword that scrapes the metal at your temple. The sharp jolt in your arms as your own spear sinks into something soft and refuses to go any farther. The quick, violent tug as you wrench it free. At some point, the pressure in front of you thins just enough for air to slip back into your lungs in longer pulls. The first wave has spent itself. Bodies are pulled back, others take their place. There is no real break, only a change in the texture of the shove. Behind you, an order cuts through the noise. Spartans fall back by ranks. It is not a retreat. It is a tightening. You begin to give ground, not by turning, not by breaking, but by stepping back in controlled movements, still facing the enemy, still keeping the shields locked. The wall behind you and the slopes on either side create a shallow bowl of space slightly higher than the road. A small hill of stone and earth, just big enough to gather around. You have seen it each day. You knew, somewhere in the quiet part of your mind, that if everything else failed, you would end there. Now you feel it under your feet as the line edges back, step by step, never letting the formation split. Arrows chase you even as you withdraw. Men on the Persian side sense what is happening and press harder, eager to trap you in that rising pocket of ground and crush you there. From the mountain path behind, shouts echo. The other arm of the army is on its way down. The pass is closing from both ends, just as you knew it would. You reach the rise. The ground tilts under your heels, then levels. Here the formation tightens into a knot. Shields curve around, forming not just a wall, but almost a circle. Spartans, Thespians, others who refuse to leave, all pulled together into one last dense shape of bronze and oak and flesh. Leonidas is somewhere near the centre, close enough that you can catch glimpses of the red cloak, the familiar set of his shoulders, the way he turns his head to listen to reports from both sides at once. There is no grand speech now. There is no time. His presence is itself the only speech needed. The Persians come on. From the front, from the side, from the path behind. They pour into the space below the hill and begin to climb. The advantage of the narrow throat is gone. The advantage of height takes its place. For a short time, that is enough. You stand with your comrades on that rise and become something dense and stubborn. The ground helps you now. The Persians must struggle upward, their footing uncertain, their ranks jumbled. Your spears reach down into them. Their weight turns against them. Those who fall roll back, tripping others. The air is a wild mixture of sound. Shouts in Greek, orders in Persian, metal striking metal, the thick final noises that bodies make when they can do no more. The sun climbs. Somewhere beyond the smoke and dust it shines on the sea, on the hot springs, on distant fields where people carry out their ordinary days. Up here, its light is chopped by spear shafts and twisted by rising haze. Your arms shake now with every movement. Your legs feel as if they are filled with sand. Part of your mind watches your body with a kind of distant surprise. It is still moving. It is still pushing. It is still doing the things it was taught to do long after you thought it would have to stop. You see Leonidas fall. You do not see the blow that takes him. The crush is too thick, the noise too loud. You sense it first, like a gap opening in the shape of the fight. Then the word ripples through the men nearest him and outward along the hill. The king is down. For a heartbeat, the world seems to hesitate. The Persians feel it too. They surge, desperate to seize the body, to drag it away as proof. Your commanders react faster than thought. Orders snap. Men close ranks around the fallen king, not to flee with him, there is nowhere to flee, but to keep his body from being taken. You are too far to help directly. You do the only thing you can. You push harder where you are. Your spear finds another throat, another shoulder. Your shield catches another sword. You feel something strike your shin, glancing off bone. Pain flares and then folds into the larger ache. The hill shrinks, not in size, but in space that still has living men on it. Step by step, under the endless pressure, under arrows and spears and stones, the knot of defenders compresses. Shields overlap so tightly there is barely room to move behind them. You fight now almost by instinct alone, guided by the small gaps that appear, the brief openings that still flicker in front of you. At some point you lose your spear. You do not even see exactly how. A violent collision, a wrench, a break in the shaft. Suddenly your hand is empty. There is no time to feel the shock. You duck behind your shield as a sword flashes toward your head, then slam the shield forward with all the strength left in your legs. The man opposite stumbles. A comrade to your left drives his blade into the space that opens. You draw your short sword, the last tool at your belt. It feels strangely small after the long reach of the spear, but it is still steel. It still cuts. You use it when you can. Often there is no room even for that. The fight is all shove, all weight, all struggle to stay on your feet in the heaving mass. You know it cannot last. The body knows. The mind knows. You are bleeding from places you have not had time to count. Cuts on arms, on legs, a deeper line along your ribs where something found a thinner piece of armor. Each breath tastes of rust and smoke. And yet, even as your vision narrows and bright points begin to shimmer at its edges, another understanding settles in. They have paid. The ground below the hill is thick with figures who will not stand again. The Persians have climbed over their own dead again and again to reach you. The time they wanted to walk through this pass without trouble has been torn away and thrown aside. The story they hoped to tell about a smooth march through Greece now includes this place, this stubborn rock, these bodies. When the moment finally comes, it does not feel grand. It feels small and almost gentle. You raise your shield one more time. A spear from somewhere in front slips in under its rim, sliding through a gap that did not exist a heartbeat before. You feel it enter you as a hot, sudden pressure, not a flash of icy pain, but a heavy push that steals your breath. Your knees weaken. The shield grows impossibly heavy. You try to lift it again and find that your arm will not answer. The noise of the battle thickens and then begins to fade, as if someone is walking away with it down a long corridor. The weight of bodies around you becomes distant. Above, the skies are pale, smoke-stained blue. A single bird circles far overhead, a tiny dark shape against the light. You fall, but it is not the long, fearful drop your mind once imagined in quiet moments. It is a short, almost clumsy collapse, your shoulder striking the earth, your cheek pressed against warm dust. The smell of the hot springs drifts on the air. You hear, very faintly, the sea pulling at the shore far away. Your hand loosens on the sword. You feel the roughness of the ground under your fingers. Your thoughts wander for a moment, sliding away from the noise and the strain. You see your father in the doorway, eyes calm, your mother's hand on your arm, your son's small fingers gripping your wrist. The streets of Sparta at dawn, the training yard, the long road to this narrow place. The hill, the pass, the shouting, all of it begins to slip behind a veil. Not suddenly, not violently. It is as if someone is drawing a soft cloth over the world, muting its colours and sounds. Your last sense is not of steel or fear. It is of weight leaving. The shield is no longer on your arm, the spear is no longer in your hand, the burden of standing is gone. There is only the dark, quiet space that waits after effort. The springs whisper, the sea breathes, and you, who have held the pass as long as human bone and will could manage, let go at last and drift down into a silence that feels very much like sleep. Centuries pass, and the hill at Thermopylae does what all hills do. It settles, it forgets, it remembers. The bodies are taken away, burned, buried, scattered. The shields rot. The spear shafts collapse back into the dirt they came from. Bronze darkens and sinks into the ground. Rain falls. Grass pushes up through places that once knew only dust and iron. The sea keeps breathing against the shore. The hot springs keep whispering up from the stone. The shape of the land changes slowly. The water eats a little more of the coast, then gives some of it back. The road that once carried you and your brothers becomes a different road, used by different feet, for reasons that have nothing to do with kings from the east or councils in Greek cities. But stories are not earth, and they do not erode in the same way. Somewhere, not long after the last Spartan fell, a man lifts a stylus and writes a few short lines about the past and those who stood there. He's not a soldier. He did not feel the weight of the shield strap on his arm or the bite of the spear in his side. Yet he hears the shape of what happened and puts it into words small enough to carry. It is an epitaph. Stranger, go tell the Spartans that we lie here, obedient to their laws. The words are simple. They travel better than armour. They move from one tongue to another, crossing years the way armies cross rivers. Men who never saw Sparta, never smelled the hot springs, never heard your king's voice, repeat them quietly to themselves and feel something settle in their own chests. Time walks on. The great king you stood against turns his attention elsewhere. His empire, vast and complicated, bends and shifts under the hands of his heirs and enemies. Battles are fought in places whose names mean nothing to the stone at Thermopylae. Thrones rise, wobble, fall. New banners are carried down different roads. In Greece, too, things change. Cities that once stared at each other over old grudges now fight over new ones. They remember Thermopylae when it suits them, forget it when it doesn't, then remember again when they need a story about what it looks like, when a small group of men decide that enough is a word worth making real. Generations turn over like pages. Fathers speak to sons about the hot gates, sometimes with pride, sometimes with a kind of heavy sadness. Boys listen and imagine themselves in bronze and red, standing in a narrow throat of stone, facing a flood. None of them feels the dust under their heels the way you did. But the image holds, more time passes, the language changes its shape, words soften at the edges, then harden again in new forms. The gods you prayed to lose their names, gain others, or step quietly into the background while different prayers rise into the same sky. The land keeps adjusting. Earthquakes nudge the cliffs. The springs shift their mouths a little. The sea drags pebbles away and throws them back. Travellers still come through the pass. For a long time they are soldiers, traders, messengers, men with dust in their throats and business in their heads. Later some of them are something else curious, book-laden, wide-eyed. They have read about you in quiet rooms very far away. They have traced the lines of old historians with their fingers and decided that they want to see where those lines began. They arrive and find a road, some stones, a smell of mineral in the air where the hot water still rises. At first they might be disappointed. There is no army waiting in the curve of the pass. No wall of shields, no red cloaks, just rock, water, wind, and the faint sound of traffic along a modern way. If they are patient, they stay a little longer. They walk to where the ground rises slightly, a low swell of earth where you once stood with your brothers. They put their hand on the rough face of a stone marker, not the original, not the one that first carried the epitaph, but another, raised later in its place. They read the same words in a language that has walked a long road and changed its clothes many times, but still remembers the old meaning. They look up at the cliffs. Imagine enemy feet on the upper path. Imagine dust rising. Imagine the narrow gap filled with bodies pushing, shouting, refusing to move. For a moment, the present thins. The hum of engines on a distant road fades. The modern clothes on their own bodies feel light and strange. They can almost hear the deep drum of feet on gravel, the rattle of arrows, the dull crash of shield against shield. They will never know exactly what it felt like to stand there, with your heart beating hard in your throat and your arms burning with effort. They will never smell the exact mixture of sweat, dust, metal, spring steam, and fear that filled that throat of rock. But something in them recognizes the shape of the choice. Stay. Stand. Pay the cost yourself so that someone else doesn't have to. Centuries later, that shape is still clear enough to touch. More time flows. Maps are redrawn again and again. Lines of borders shift across the page. Empires new and old claim the land and then let it go. Each of them has its own armies, its own battles, its own names for courage and defeat. Yet when they need an image of a few men holding a narrow place against many, they reach back past their own grandparents and their grandparents' grandparents to the hill where you fell. The name of the pass becomes a kind of shorthand. Thermopylae, the hot gates. You can hear it in other mouths, in other times, describing places that are not yours at all. Bridges, streets, mountain roads. People say it was their Thermopylae, and everyone listening understands at least the outline. 300 becomes a number that no longer really means 300. Array? It means not enough, and yet they stood. Some will argue over the details. They will ask how many men were really there, which city did what, who fought hardest, who hesitated, who betrayed. They will debate tactics, logistics, motives. They will stack books on top of books, each trying to polish a different angle of the same events. All of that has its place. None of it changes the simple core, a narrow pass, a larger force, a decision not to move until you are physically removed. The land itself listens to these arguments with the same slow patience it gave your footsteps. It knows that men come and go. It knows that stories grow and shrink. It knows that it will still be here when the last voice speaking about this battle has gone quiet. If you could walk that road now, in whatever shape now has, you might not recognize everything. The houses would be wrong. The sounds would be strange. The smell of oil and metal would come from different tools. But if you stood on that slight rise of earth, if you faced the gap between rock and water, if you felt the wind coming down the throat of the pass and heard the springs murmur at your back, something in you would know exactly where you were. The stone remembers the weight of your feet. The air remembers the shape of your breath. And somewhere, very far from the hot gates, someone trying to fall asleep might close their eyes and hear this story in a dark room. They might not care about every name. They might not remember every detail in the morning. But as their body relaxes, as their own day lets go, they carry with them one quiet image, a line of men, tired, bruised, afraid and steady, standing shoulder to shoulder in a narrow place and deciding again and again that they will hold a little longer. The sea keeps breathing. The springs keep whispering. The stars that watched you still hang above it all. And somewhere under that sky, the memory of Thermopylae lies like a stone at the bottom of a clear pool, still, small, easily overlooked, but waiting for the right light to catch it and show its shape to anyone who pauses long enough to look down and listen.